Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Good morning, and it is another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Welcome to the program. Welcome to Wednesday. At what point last night did you hear, in Kitchener-Waterloo, did you actually hear this collective sigh of relief last night as the final horn blows out in Kelowna? And it's a 3-2 victory for the Rangers, going 3-0 in the round robin and a bye into the final game for the Memorial Cup on Sunday. Man, I mean, we won 5-0, 6-2, and last night a very close game. But, I'm sure people break down those stats and look at that in the future. But at the end of the day, as they say, a W is a W. And there we are, 3-0. Like if you heard Cameron Reid, the Rangers captain, this morning on 570 News Radio saying, it's what we wanted to do. It's kind of the thought you have going into the tournament. If you can go 3-0 in the round robin, get that bye into the finals, and it's what you want to do. And I'm sure every team had that thought, right? But the Kitchener Rangers got it done. What a terrific performance! Wow, that is so cool. And just we were in at least a semifinal going into last night's game against Chicoutimi, but that sigh of relief and saying, okay, we did it. And, I said this yesterday because the Rangers now have today and tomorrow and Friday and Saturday and most of Sunday before they have to play a game. And the rest, I think, is good in this particular case, right? Other teams are going to have to play in a playoff. I don't think there's a tiebreaker yet. I'll try and figure that out. But anyway, there's Memorial Cup action where the Rangers just get to watch, and I think it's a good thing. Now, granted, these are young and very fit individuals, but at this point in a season and a playoff and a round-robin tournament and playoffs and a round-robin tournament, and throw the travel in there, I think it's beneficial to just kind of all those little aches and pains and strains and everything that you deal with as a high-level athlete, to just kind of rest those up. Maybe even take a day where I'm sure I hope they're going to take a day where it's just not hockey at all. They have that luxury. Go out to the Okanagan Valley and pick an apple off a tree or something. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of get away from it for a day. They have that luxury. A couple of light practices, meetings. I'm sure that this will all happen, and then really get into it on your Saturday and Sunday, especially, and refocus and get back to it and be ready and refreshed as we head into the Memorial Cup game on Sunday night. So anyway, just it's hokey, but just a way to go. Way to go, Rangers. That is, just the best possible outcome that they could have. And I'm so thrilled about the whole thing. We're actually going to speak to Dan Lebold at 12 o'clock today. Dan Lebold is the head trainer and equipment manager for the Rangers. And I believe this marks now 3 tournament runs that he's had. There's actually a wonderful video on YouTube. If you just search YouTube for Dan Lebold, and it's I think when he hit 1,800 games in Major Junior, and that he's been involved in, and just the players past and present and other people in the organization who pay tribute to him. It's just such a lovely little video. It's not too long if you want to search it out. And that was like 5-6 years ago that he accomplished that. And there's certainly other, I guess, stats on his resume now that are really cool, especially now that the Rangers have gone to the Memorial Cup. So that's one way we're going to celebrate today, is speaking to the trainer and equipment manager, Dan Lebold. Tells a great story of years ago going to, where was it? Was it Hull, where they basically had to pack up the entire Rangers dressing room in a couple of 18-wheelers so that the players would feel at home at the Memorial Cup, and things like training bikes and skate sharpeners and things where now the Memorial Cup kind of takes care of that for you. You go to a place and you have a training facility and you have skate sharpeners. But back even, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you had to bring your own. And so the trucks would get backed up and you'd travel all the way. And so Dan has those kinds of stories. And he is going to join us at 12 noon today to help celebrate this victory and talk a little bit about all the great stuff he has done as well. So, as I said, man, way to go. Here's Doug. Doug calling the show early on Wednesday. Go ahead, Doug.
Good morning, Larry.
Good morning.
I would say that's a sense of relief, tempered with a certain helping of shock and awe based on what that young fellow from Chicoutimi did to Chris Humphreys last night. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I didn't see that one, but yeah, heard about it.
Yeah. Well, I saw it, and it was absolutely. The commentator on TV called it greasy. I've never heard that one applied before, but it was. I had to pick my jaw off of my chest. I can't believe what I saw. Not once, not twice, but 3 times he stomped on him with the skate. And of course, Humphreys went down like he was shot, and I guess so. You're right about them maybe taking a day that's just not hockey. I think they're going to need it. I really looked at that 5-minute power play they got, even the 2-man advantage. They looked like they were sleepwalking through the last 5 minutes of that hockey game. I think they were all very shocked and worried about their teammate, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably the one time when I listened to the comment from UC, he was very, very unhappy. You never see him lose it. What's his name? Button, Craig Button, the analyst on TSN. He's a very mild-mannered, 100% hockey impartial observer, and I've never seen anyone lose it the way he did. He was extremely angry, and I think they're going to need a day to get away from this, just to collect themselves. They were very worried about their teammates, so maybe getting together this way they'll have a chance to rest, relax, and recharge, and get ready for Sunday, because everybody's very happy for them, and it's great that they're there, but they're going to need a chance to be together. So anyway,
for sure.
So Rangers, have a good week, and we'll talk to you again sometime. Thanks.
You bet. I hope so, Doug. Thank you. Thanks for the call, man. I think, it's going to be long 4 days till game day for Rangers fans. It's just going to crawl by, but good for the team, as I said, and Doug sort of echoed a bit, is that you just need some time. They have almost 5 full days before they play again. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. And my thought is it's going to be Everett. That's just my gut feeling. Please don't wager on my gut feeling, because I have before and it's not good. But my gut feeling is it just might be Everett. But whoever it is has to play the Rangers. We're there. We're already done. We're done the round robin and in. So, Maureen, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I hope I don't sound confused, but I'm very uneducated on all this stuff. But my opinion on the word justice is something else when it comes to our legal and justice system. So First off, Justice Craig Perry calls 48 witnesses unreliable, that they have unreliable evidence. He called them totally down and let a man off who was put out by the Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario and has never been a doctor ever since all these things happened. How this Justice Craig Perry can say that, it's okay for doctors to touch people. Well, it's a funny thing we don't hear about this more often if this is the general procedure for a neurologist. Secondly, it's okay for Craig Perry to do that and call 48 people down, but it's not okay for Premier Ford, who, this notwithstanding clause, I don't understand it, but apparently he's got the right to use it to settle our encampment at the corner of Victoria and Weber. But now all the legal people are complaining that he shouldn't have said what he said about putting it in Justice Michael Gibson's backyard and see how he would like an encampment. Like, where does the justice start and where does it end? I know Premier Ford's got a big mouth, and he says some things that you got to wonder about him, but come on. It's okay for this judge to call down 48 people, but it's not okay for our premier to call down the judge. It's just very confusing.
Maureen, thanks for the call. These are the second case certainly top of mind. The first case not as much so, but I would just say to that I don't think it's in a premier's best interest or a leader of a province or a country to start calling down the justice system. It's part of the checks and balances of a democracy, and for a judge, rightly or wrongly, in a specific case, to call out against a witness or a testimony or someone involved in a trial, I think is perfectly okay. If the justice was wrong in what he or she did, then okay, then we investigate that on a separate matter. But just procedurally or generally speaking, justice has to comment on cases in courts and witnesses. I don't think politicians should be, hitting out at justices or, threatening to, if a justice made a decision on Victoria and Weber, to say, well, we'll put those people in your backyard. How would you like it? I'm like, that's not what the justice is saying. We have laws and rules in a judicial system to maintain the laws and rules for the overall good. If we don't like the laws, then that's what we change. We kind of write the laws. We say, this is a bad example, but it's like, okay, we want to smoke marijuana and it's illegal and that's ridiculous. We want to change that, and then we get it changed, and various legalizations of marijuana come in. Maybe not the best example, but you know what I'm saying? We change the laws, we write the laws according to the norms and ethics and wishes of the people. If we don't like the way the law works, then we have to change the law, but it works to protect all of us, whether it's you, me, whether we want to build something at Victoria and Weber, or whether we're encamped and living in a tent and a sleeping bag in Victoria and Weber. The law has to protect all of us, or it's not a law at all, or it's not a democracy at all. So for Doug to shoot his mouth off about a justice making a decision by the rule of law, and I believe that we have to live by the rule of law. If he's doing that, then it's not good. It's not good, Doug. It doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. It's not something you should be doing, because the law has spoken about something you don't like, basically. And again, if we don't like the laws, then let's work to change the laws. And who better than a premier to get that rolling, but don't just blabbermouth. It's actually no class, basically, but not surprising to me anyway, about Doug Ford. So the other part of this is that notwithstanding clause, which I kind of dove into a bit yesterday, so I don't want to repeat this whole thing on the show. But the notwithstanding clause has been called the joke of the Charter of Rights, the flaw, the mistake. And it was really put in at the beginning because of a lot of people say because of Quebec. And yes, Quebec has used it the most times since the 80s, some 20 times. But it really was this idea that the provincial, if the Charter of Rights passed just the way it was without Section 33, which has become known as the notwithstanding clause, then the provinces felt it would give too much power to the federal government. And they wanted some jurisdictional power over certain rights, I guess, certain rights and privileges that perhaps wouldn't align with the population of their particular province. And they felt, well, if they have no say in this, then the federal government has all the power. We have no say over us locally, and we're a big country. should everything apply in British Columbia that it does in Prince Edward Island? One would say yes on first blush in principle, but people live differently in different parts of this vast country and may have different wishes and needs and ethics. And so the province has said, we want some say in this. And they said, okay, how about a clause where you can override certain charter rights, not all, certain, in order to have a law in your province, in your area. And that's become known as the notwithstanding clause. So the province can do that. They can say, well, and I used the example yesterday because it's an easy example. You have the right to have a same-sex marriage in Canada. And if Alberta doesn't like it, they can say, we're going to notwithstanding clause, and you can't have that in Alberta. So good luck to you if you live in Alberta, and if you want to get married to a same-sex person, you have to move. Legally married, right? You have to move. So that's kind of the notwithstanding clause in a nutshell. And I don't think it should be used frivolously. And I think this would be a somewhat frivolous use of it. Even though I say frivolous, the situation is it's not a frivolous situation. It's a serious situation. And it's been going on for years, as you know. And homelessness overall is very serious. And so is development and infrastructure, which brings jobs and circulates money, which is how the economy works. These are all very important things. None of these things are frivolous. But I don't think it's what Section 33 of the Charter of Rights was meant to do, just to be a tool for the whims and wishes of a ranting premier. But Maureen, thanks for the call. Didn't think we were going to go there this morning, but here we are. We went there. Just back to the Rangers for a second, and a very specific story that I want to get off my chest this morning before we move on. And I'll preface the story by saying that I run conversations or monologues in my head. And I also replay conversation and monologues in my head. Most of that is because I've been in talk radio and broadcasting for all my life. So you're kind of always thinking what you're going to say, because there's no script in live radio, but you do have some ideas of what you want to say and the way you want to say it. So I'll kind of run that in my head. It's almost like a rehearsal. And then afterwards, I will kind of replay it and say, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I should have said it this way, or I forgot to say this thing, or, I make notes sometimes. And I think it's trying to be professional. That's what I call it. But maybe it's just something that I do. I replay the conversations. So yesterday afternoon, I'm looking at some notes and I'm replaying the conversations and I'm going, oh yeah, that interview, I really enjoyed that. That was a good point that guest made. Oh, I wish I would have asked this guest about that. I forgot. And I'm replaying. And I'm replaying Mike Farwell's appearance on the show yesterday. He guested on the show at 11:30 yesterday morning, talking about the Rangers. As we know, Mike is not on the show this week because he's in Kelowna, calling the Rangers games for 570 News Radio at the Memorial Cup. So we know that. And what a perfect guest to have on about the quest to the Memorial Cup. Then Mike Farwell. So Mike's been on a couple of times while I've been filling in. And Mike comes on yesterday. And I have this joke in my head. It's not even a joke. It's not very good. It's a pun. It's stupid. I was singing My Sharona as My Kelowna. And so I say that when I bring on Mike, and I go, here's Mike Farwell, who, of course, is live in My Kelowna. Welcome, Mike Farwell. And Mike says to me, hey, wow, Larry, you certainly have a knack. And I was like, hey, thanks. It's just a dumb joke, whatever. And we go into the Rangers discussion. So I'm replaying this in my head later, and it hits me like a brick. Mike said, you certainly have a knack. The Knack was the band that did My Sharona and my Kelowna joke. And I'm like, oh, man, Larry, there's a hole in your glove. He keeps pitching them. You keep missing him. You're built too low, kid. The good ones are going over your head, like totally over my head. I didn't even, so I emailed Mike and I said, Mike, it took me a few hours because literally it was a couple hours later, but I finally got the joke oh my gosh, what a great comeback, Mike Farwell. That's why he's Mike Farwell, by the way. What a great comeback. I'm so sorry I missed it. I mean, swing and a miss, Larry, I said. And Mike emailed me back. He goes, well, sometimes I throw change-ups. And I thought that was another great line. So for anybody who got that joke yesterday and went, why didn't I react? Or because I didn't get it. That's how smart I am. Just the greatest comeback on a dumb joke about my Kelowna. Mike saying you have the knack was just a great ad lib and a great comeback. And I just wanted to give him credit for that. Sorry I missed it yesterday. I'll try not to miss anything today. It was just so good. It was just so good. So now that's off my chest. Okay. It is Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. Back with more in a moment. This is 570 News Radio, also on Rogers TV. Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell. We don't have a game day now till Sunday because of that Rangers win last night. So here we are still talking Rangers, of course. I mentioned earlier that Dan Lebold, the equipment manager, head trainer for the Kitchener Rangers, is going to join us at noon today. Talk a little bit more about the win. And, of course, the great stories and accomplishments that Dan has had over the years. I think this is now third tournament run for Dan. So that's going to be cool. We'll talk at noon. Of course, after that, we'll still have our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. We'll open up the phone lines totally for whatever you want to talk about. Speaking of the phone lines, here's George. George, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Yeah, good morning, Larry. Larry, I'm going to give you a chance to redeem yourself a little bit with my Sharona and the way you put that in and everything with the knot. Here's your chance.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a soft one. You should be able to nail this one out of the park. I'm going to give you 79 chances to redeem yourself. What am I talking about?
79 chances to redeem myself.
Emphasis on the 79.
Well, isn't that the year the song came out? I don't know.
Bingo. That's it. That's the year.
Oh, is it? Okay. All right.
Excellent. Have yourself a great day, Larry. Want to let you redeem yourself a little bit. Catch that one.
All right. Thank you, George. Thank you. I don't know that it does, but thank you for the effort, George. That was good. I remember when that song came out in 1979. You know what? Because the 70s were plagued by a lot of just soft, overproduced strings and ballads and then disco. And not that I dislike any of it. I mean, you know, you listen to music, but it's just, does anybody rock and roll anymore? And then along came My Sharona and the Knack, just a hard drum beat and 3 rock chords and a dopey lyric. And it was like, yeah, beautiful, man. Somebody's rocking and rolling again. And then came the Cars and the Police and a few people and kind of that new wave movement. It wasn't quite punk, but it wasn't, overproduced stuff. So as people make fun of that song, it was pivotal, I think, in kind of getting people to rock and roll again. I loved it. Still do. Look up a history of that song and the band. It's very interesting to see what they've done. Coming up next on the program, we are going to talk climate change and the upcoming season. I know the Weather Network just released their summer forecast, and they said, we're probably going to have a little bit of cooler summer, more rain and stuff, which might mean not as bad a wildfire season and smoke in the air everywhere. That's just one part of it. We can't confuse weather with climate, but we are going to talk climate change with a professor from the University of Waterloo coming up next here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Yesterday on the program, I was talking about Dunkin' Donuts making a return to Canada coming up in the next couple of months before the first one comes up, and they'll be primarily in Quebec and Ontario for the first year or so before they expand out west. But they were in Canada until 2018. They're coming back. We're going to be speaking to a marketing and business expert at around 10:30 this morning. We're going to talk about that a little more and get the thoughts on an American chain coming into Canada at a time when we're kind of like trying not to buy American. So it'll be interesting timing of that, and we'll talk more about that at 10:30. At 10 o'clock, this is a wonderful initiative. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. I only recently did. It's called the Sunflower Campaign. And it's a pin or generally a lanyard that you wear that has a sunflower on it, and it signifies that you have a hidden disability, maybe a low vision or brain injury, things where your disability is not obvious. So people go, why are you using that facility, or why are you sitting in that seat, or why are you parking there? But sunflower indicates that you have a hidden disability. So Waterloo has adopted this as a program, and we'll tell you how to pick up your lanyards and your symbols for that coming up at 10 o'clock this morning. So that and a lot more on today's program. And looking forward to this conversation as well, because it's really something we should be talking about more, and it is climate change. I know in some cases it's a roll your eye thing, and people often confuse the weather with climate change. What climate change? Look, it's a beautiful day. Well, it is increasingly threatening humanity. And here to talk about it in general is our guest, Associate Professor, Tier 2, Canada Research Chair in Global Change, Atmosphere and Health at the University of Waterloo. Rebecca Sari is joining us. Professor Sari, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good morning, Larry. It's my pleasure to be here.
Climate change, I guess I'm just repeating what people should know, but I want to. It's life-threatening. I mean, there's the economic pressures, which are important to talk about, but just the life-threatening aspects of it. Sort of articulate that, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's two ways of framing it, right? We could say that climate change is the greatest health threat of this century, or we could say it's, as Health Canada has recently done, it's the greatest health opportunity of this century. We think about climate change as something that's long-term and far away, but there are near-term local health implications of not addressing climate change, and also near-term local health benefits of addressing climate
change. The opportunity, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, we have an opportunity to improve health if we address climate change. So, for example, reducing the emissions that cause climate change can also improve air quality, and air quality has local significant health impacts that we could alleviate if we address the emissions that cause climate change.
There are the general admissions from use of fossil fuels, but we particularly. It really comes to mind, I think, for a lot of people when we have wildfires, which are kind of a result of climate change. Mm-hmm. But then we have our summers often full of smoky air, which is really bad and contains particulates that are even more dangerous than just general bad air.
Yeah, absolutely. The particulate matter, that's the main pollution that comes from wildfire smoke. And it's that by itself is the number 4 leading cause of premature death worldwide. And in Canada, wildfire smoke is the single largest contributor to air pollution in Canada. And that specific pollutant, particulate matter, is associated with about 17,000 deaths in Canada every year and about $140 billion in economic damages. And wildfires, we know, are impacted by climate change, so they can become more frequent climate change.
And, we say economic damages and compared to loss of life, but economic damages, that's our opportunity to live a decent life if it affects the economy that way. So it's life affecting also.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's affects our quality of life. And, in our research recently, we've been looking at how it affects simple things like our decisions to go outside and enjoy the outdoor environment. Through exercise or recreation, or people have to work outside, and climate change can make those decisions a lot tougher for people who are sensitive to.
I remember reading one of the first global warnings about this was, I think, a paper, I'm going to say 1957. It's often cited as one of the first papers that was widely circulated on warning us about our habits, and here we are. And I believe you looked at stats that said by 2100 it could get even worse.
Yes, we looked at how climate change can affect air pollution. So, climate change, it can make temperatures rise, right? And so higher temperatures can lead to faster chemical reactions that can lead to more pollution. It can also create more emissions that are associated with air pollution, like wildfire emissions, for example. We can have more hot, calm days that lets pollution build up and creates more of these extreme days that might lead to something called an air quality alert. And we found in our work that, we wanted to see how large this effect could be. And we looked at the US up to 2100 at the end of century. And we found that if we don't reduce emissions, it was a bit shocking to us. Alerts could double. And about 1 in 3 Americans could live in places where the air is considered unhealthy for sensitive groups on average in the summer. That's a growth of 7 times the amount of people currently living in air that's considered unhealthy for sensitive groups. And we found about half of summer days could have conditions that would trigger an alert for sensitive groups. Okay, so that's sensitive groups, right? So that's young people, young children, the elderly, people with asthma, people who work outside, exercise outside with a variety of underlying health conditions. Those are all sensitive groups.
Well, I wanted to ask about that. It's in some ways the usual suspects, the young, the old, the vulnerable, but you mentioned too, people who exercise. Okay, so I'm not going to go out golfing on a day or go for my run, but there's people who work outside. This is what they have to do. And what happens can they just not work? Again, economic, do they just shut down?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the real challenge is it's part of the reason why it's important to keep outdoor air clean, because there are people who simply can't change their behavior. And there are specific things, normally during an alert, we tell people to limit time outside. There are people who can't do that because they are experiencing homelessness, because they work outside, or they just simply can't change their day. And so we need other measures for them. So for outdoor workers, if work can be rescheduled, then that's ideal. If it can be moved inside, then that's ideal. If it can't, then depending on the air, so for example, if it's a smoke-impacted day, then things like well-fitting respirators, so like P99 and N95 masks can reduce exposure. But again, they have to be trained in these measures and they have to be well-fitting and supplied.
If it gets that much worse, where it's 1 in 3, I mean, staying inside in some cases is not going to do it. I mean, do we have to reventilate or what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just rebuild all kinds of buildings, infrastructure, so that we can at least have clean air inside? What happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I really hope it doesn't get that bad. If we do reduce emissions that cause climate change to meet our Paris Agreement goals, we won't see it getting that bad. But on the other hand, we are already seeing more alerts happening in Canada recently with these climate change impacted wildfire events. So what I think we should be doing is, as you mentioned, like improving indoor air quality. So we need buildings that are well sealed to keep things like wildfire smoke outside, and are well ventilated to keep that air moving around, and well filtered to take particles out of the air. And so, that takes money, that takes resources. And so policy support to improve buildings to keep indoor air clean, I think would really help protect people from these really hard to control events like wildfires.
And as far as the big picture, and because again, I will cite 1957, we were warned. I always say, in the 70s, Marvin Gaye, Mercy, Mercy Me, The Ecology, there's a song, it's a pop song that was telling people, hey, even in pop culture, we were saying, here's the warnings. And here we are. And who are the culprits? I mean, is that who we have to look at? The fossil fuel people? And, electric cars, but do we get more cars off the street? What do we do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we need to continue to reduce the emissions that cause climate change and air pollution. So Yeah, anytime you're burning fossil fuels, whether it's to produce energy or power industry or to drive around, fly around, we need to look for alternatives. And you mentioned electrification. Yes, electrification from clean sources can certainly help that. There are going to be sources that are harder to decarbonize too, or emissions that are harder to address, like from natural sources or wildfires. And so we also need um, to help people stay protected from when they do continue, things do continue to get worse, like during alerts. So improving indoor air quality is also.
How would you rate in general? I'm not saying that you've done studies on this, but just in general, you're University of Waterloo. Ontario air generally, unless there's wildfire smoke, we tend to think it's pretty good. We don't necessarily hear about warnings or alerts. I guess people in general aren't hearing or aware of alerts in general, are they?
No, in general, very few people are aware of alerts. I think globally, it's like 30% of people say they've have adapted to an alert. It's much lower in North America. Alerts are relatively rare in Canada. Like at any given moment, about like 1% of monitors is registering some kind of alert. So we're lucky here. Even in 2023, Canada was in the top 10 countries with the lowest health risks from air pollution. So we are lucky. We have relatively good air. But I think we're in a situation where we should be more aware of the air now, right? Like just check the risk color, whether it's green, the air quality index, whether it's green is good, red is bad. If it's red, consider taking action. Consider closing doors and windows, trying to keep indoor air clean.
And again, this weather network prediction for the summer that we're having that might be not quite as hot and a little more rain and all these, and we might get away with less wildfires. I don't know. That's not my prediction. I'm just thinking ahead. Again, we're going to confuse weather with climate change, and I think that just keeps people from thinking more about climate change because they look out and go, "It's a beautiful day." What are they talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is really hard to make those connections, and I think that's why longer term strategies to protect people without them having to think about it is going to be the most effective for those people. So keeping outdoor air clean, keeping indoor air clean. And we'll see about the summer, right? 2026 is almost certainly going to be one of the hottest years on record, aside from 2023. And there are places where I don't like the way the wildfire weather index looks in Ontario and Eastern Canada for June, for example. So cooler and wetter would be fantastic. But, I think folks should try to stay aware of it. And if the air looks bad, look at the index, look at the advice, and maybe do something about it.
For sure. Keep aware for sure. Rebecca Sari, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Rebecca Sari is from the University of Waterloo, Associate Professor, Tier 2, also Canada Research Chair in Global Change, Atmosphere, and Health, and talking about climate change. Again, so easy to, and I like to think I'm aware and have been on this for a while, but I do it too. Hey, it's a beautiful day. Let's not think about it, right? because it's a nice day and we've been waiting for a nice day. Let's get outside. But so quickly, and again, this is more weather related, but when that wildfire hits and suddenly that beautiful day is just, you can't go outside and you got to go, that's climate change. And in this part of the world, Spain isn't burning down this year. And by the way, which one is it? Are they flooding or are they burning down? Or are they flooding because they burnt down last year and there's no greenery or anything to track and absorb water? Australia burning down, like big parts of this world just on fire, literally. And you say that's as a result of climate change. I don't know what has to happen for it to hit home for more and more people. Mark Carney last week said that we're going to double our grid in Canada in the next 20 years, because in the next 20 years, our demand for power is going to double in Canada. AI is part of the reason, massive data centers, certainly, but just more devices. And he mentioned, because we talked about electrification is key. And electrification is key, and doubling the power grid. The problem with doubling the power grid is not a problem, but I said the issue in doubling a power grid is where's the power coming from? Is it coming from more sun and more wind and more nukes? Or is it coming from more fossil fuels and natural gas and areas that aren't as clean? And the answer is yes. Doubling the power grid will mean more of everything. And yeah, we can do hydro, and Ontario is actually pretty good for clean power. We're actually doing really well and have for decades, but doesn't mean there isn't room for improvement. But if it's nukes, which has its own issue, I get it. Ask the people in Port Hope about that. But nuclear power has its own issues, but it's a cleaner energy. So is of course solar and wind, but there's a lot of problems associated with those. And we're so fossil fuel dependent and based for so many decades that it's hard to wean ourselves off of that. So we're going to double our grid, and yes, we can call it electrification, but it doesn't mean it's clean. And these are things we have to shoot for if we want to try and stall and maybe even reverse climate change. It's not quite too late to do that, but it's getting there. Yeah, it is getting there. Your thoughts, more in a moment. I'm Larry Fedorkin for Mike Farwell. This is 570 News Radio. We're also on Rogers TV.
We need buildings that are well sealed to keep things like wildfire smoke outside, and are well ventilated to keep that air moving around, and well filtered to take particles out of the air. That takes money, that takes resources. And so policy support to improve buildings to keep indoor air clean, I think, would really help protect people from these really hard to control events like wildfires.
Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell. Moments ago, I spoke to Rebecca Sari from the University of Waterloo, associate professor, also chair in global change, atmosphere, and health. And we talked about climate change, an article of hers that you can find online on a site called The Conversation about climate change could significantly worsen in the coming years. And man, that study that said by 2100 they looked at an American population for their sampling, and in by the end of the century it could be 7 times worse than it is now, and 1 in 3 Americans could be living in an area where the air is unbreathable. And even just to kind of, as I have been, bring this down to you and I, and we're looking at not going outside because the wildfire smoke is so bad from Northern Ontario, from Quebec. It doesn't matter where it's from, but it travels and suddenly smells like the campfire outside. And it's not just a romantic, faint smell of a campfire. It's okay, I can't breathe this. And so it's normally would be a beautiful day, but it's kind of hazy and can't go outside. Can't go outside. That really, when it hits home, it should be something we should be concerned about and working to change and reverse the climate change if we can. It's not just you and me riding a bike, taking a bus, trying to cut back on our own personal. That's good if we do this, but it's really all the big corporations, and we need, like, I do a podcast every week called Later That Same Life, and I pick a different topic every week. Could be anything. Could be something that's in the news, or it could be a story, whatever. I just whatever I got going that week, I do a podcast about it. And the one that I'm popping tomorrow is about data centers and this backlash against data centers. And one of the big knocks on data centers and we have data centers in Kitchener-Waterloo. We've had data centers since we've had data and computers. But now with AI, the data centers are massive, like 160-acre, several-story warehouses of machines humming, right? And they use power, and that is going to be a drain on power. And if we need more power. If that's going to be fossil fuels, that's not cutting back. So we need electrification. We want our data and we want our machinery, but where's the power coming from? Have to keep mindful of that. The Sunflower Campaign in Waterloo to do with hidden disabilities. This is a marvelous campaign. We'll talk about it next here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
And may the Dutch girl smile upon you here on a beautiful Wednesday in the region. Certainly smiling upon the Rangers who are miles away in Kelowna. I saw the before and after photos of the Dutch Girl billboard, and I mean, I knew it was damaged, but I didn't realize, I guess, how bad it was damaged during those storms until you see the restored version of it, which is, as you've been hearing now fixed off the 401 in Puslinch area. So when you see it restored, it's better than I remember it, because basically on our left, but her right side of her face was just gone, and that part of the billboard was gone. And now that it's been restored, it just looks super brand new and cool, and certainly a landmark in the region. So glad to see it's back up there and smiling upon us once again. That is a bit of good news. Tim Hortons is going to be facing competition from Dunkin' Donuts here in Canada. Dunkin' Donuts returning to this country. We should see the first one in maybe a couple of months' time. We're going to be talking about that with a business and marketing expert coming up after 10:30 this morning. So grab your Tims or whatever it is and settle down for that after 10:30. Right now on the program, very interesting initiative that the city of Waterloo has now adopted and launched. It's the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program. If you don't know what this is, I only found out about this recently myself, and I think it's wonderful. Let's find out what this is. Here is the mayor of the city of Waterloo, Dorothy McCabe, joining us. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning, Larry, and go Rangers.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. We've got almost 5 full days before the next game. What are we going to do with ourselves?
Yeah, they'll be well rested. They'll be very well rested.
For sure. As I said, I only just found out about this fairly recently. Talk about a little, if you can, about this Sunflower campaign, because it's a global initiative and it's been around for a bit.
Yes, it has been around for a bit, so we were really pleased that we have an accessibility advisor at the City of Waterloo, and she brought this initiative through her and also through the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, also known as GRAC. They brought this initiative to us, and so we're pleased to support it. And as you said, it is a globally recognized initiative, and the goal is to provide a discrete way for people who have non-visible disabilities or conditions to signal to city staff or to people who are aware of the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program. It's a discrete way to signal that they may need some more support or maybe a bit more patience during customer service experiences. So people will wear a sunflower lanyard. They can pick them up at a number of our facilities. Staff and some of our city volunteers have received some training on this to recognize it and then how to respond appropriately.
It's interesting because I was always kind of taught and told that if you see somebody parking in a special space and then they saunter into the mall or what have you, you may not know what disability they have. And so please don't try and call them out because of hidden disabilities. So I'm glad to see somebody actually taking an initiative for that with this Sunflower campaign. And you said people can pick up the lanyards. Basically, it's not a pin or anything. It's a lanyard you'd have to wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is how it was described to us. So yeah, we have them available at our Waterloo Memorial Rec Center, at Rim Park, at our service center, the city's service center, City Hall, and also Albert McCormick Community Center. And you make a good point about when you sometimes see people park in a spot that's, designated for someone with disabilities, but they don't appear to have a disability. That's a really good example, because the information that we have from Statistics Canada indicates that 27% of every Canadian over the age of 15 live with one or more disabilities that can limit their daily activities. So that tells us that there's thousands of people living in Waterloo region with what we call an invisible disability. It could be a brain injury, could be chronic pain, could be low vision or no vision, could be deafness, hearing loss, mental health conditions, learning differences, autism. And again, they're the experiences that may not be immediately apparent just by looking at someone, but they're also ones that we know have a significant impact on people's daily lives.
And I believe, and how do you feel about the honor system? Because I think it is the honor system in order to go pick up one of these sunflower lanyards.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I don't know how else really, to enforce it any other way would become probably a bit intrusive and require, I would say what some people call, bureaucracy. So doing it through on the honor system is sort of the most straightforward, and it gives people the opportunity to self-identify. And this is a program that has been operating successfully in the town of Ajax, city of Pickering, My Way Transit in Mississauga are other examples of where it's been rolled out in Canada. But yeah, we're the fourth in line, so certainly there's a lot more opportunity for other municipalities, and I certainly encourage our municipal colleagues to either talk to GRAC or to talk to their own accessibility advisor and get the information about it. But this is a global initiative, and I think it may have started in Australia and seems to be working pretty seamlessly. So.
I hate to ask, but is there a huge cost to the city to get lanyards and implement this?
No, the costs really are some training that was provided to frontline customer service and program staff. So, we do, regular training on and learning opportunities for staff. So that was built into ongoing programming. The Sunflower program itself covers the cost of the lanyards. So it's just some training for staff.
Which I understand is videos and things. They don't have to go away for 2 weeks and learn a program or something.
No.
Yeah,
no. Sorry. Yeah, no, part of it is, really good customer service. So customer service is something that we have been really focused on, improving our customer service over the past 3 years. We've been rolling out a digital service strategy. We've just launched a customer relation management, a CRM. There's more that we're rolling out across the city. So this is another element of improving our services to citizens.
Well,
so
and we hope that
there wasn't significant costs involved with this.
Good to know. Even better, actually. But
yeah.
I would hope that, the cashier at the Tim's is going to recognize this and whatever, but really the first level here is for city workers, right? In doing business with people to recognize that they may have a hidden disability.
Yes, absolutely. And, and then it's people who have these hidden disabilities, if they choose to wear them in other locations, obviously it's completely up to them. But yeah, it's helpful to be able to talk about it in a program like yours today, and just to share with, as you said, people that work at Tim Hortons or Zayres or, anywhere else in our community, our local businesses and that if they can start to recognize this sunflower, and that is a signal that someone has, as I said, a hidden disability, and they may need a bit more support from a customer service strategy or standpoint. So it's pretty simple. It's elegant in its simplicity, but it will be very impactful for people who, we said 27% of people in Canada are living with some form of disability.
And I'm hoping too that just word of mouth, that once somebody sees a lanyard, if they wear it elsewhere to the store, what have you, so, oh, what's that? And maybe a conversation ensues and word gets out that way. I'm sure it will.
Oh, I hope so. And that's what I mean. Like, I'm glad, I appreciate you talking to me today, so that we can promote it this way, and that it will be picked up across the city. And whether it's a local business owner that wants to have these, they can contact Hidden Disability Sunflower Program and find out more information. That's where we got the lanyards from. So so it's certainly open for other municipalities, other businesses, etc. But it's a good awareness. And, from the city perspective, we're focusing on improving our accessibility across the board for people of all ages, all stages of life, and all abilities. So this is another way to just be more inclusive and to, as I said, improve the customer service experience for everyone.
And it's right ahead of National Accessibility Week.
Yeah,
I believe there's June 1st and 2nd meeting and connections for people.
Yes, that's true. And there is, I should have looked that up, but it is National Accessibility Week, and there will be a trade show at the Region of Waterloo Museum. I don't know the date off the top of my head. I apologize, but that will be next week. Perhaps one of your staff could look that up quickly, and you could share that date.
I have June 1st and 2nd is what I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, and my understanding is that's open to anyone across the region who wants to drop in. There's information people can receive on, things from mobility devices to, information around benefits and job opportunities, et cetera. Like it's a wide variety of information that, I was at the trade show last year. There's a lot of great information for people of all ages and stages and abilities where they can learn from and pick up helpful information and connections.
That is terrific, and congratulations on this. I was thinking, for retail, what might be good if they could have a little poster for the window or a card on their cash that says we're part of this program as well, so they can recognize it as well, and that would help create conversation. Anyway, that's probably available. I'm just kind of spitballing.
Again, Hidden Disability Sunflower Program, and possibly maybe they have like a sticker or something like that that can go in a window. Like a pride flag, that signals to the community that there's additional support, people are welcome, etc. So, we're happy to have adopted this program, and again, appreciate the members of our Accessibility Advisory Committee, GRAC, and our Accessibility Advisor for bringing an initiative like this forward.
It certainly is great. May I say good on you?
Yes, you may.
Mayor McCabe, nicely done. Thank you for your time today. All the best.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Okay, take care.
Dorothy McCabe is mayor of Waterloo, and City of Waterloo, introducing this Hidden Disability Sunflower program in the region. And you can go to various spots. And I think the libraries are involved as well, where you can pick up a lanyard. It's on the honor system. And people say the honor system, somebody's going to abuse that. Somebody's just going to pick up a lanyard, pretend that they have a hidden disability. Yeah, maybe. That in itself is probably a hidden disability, the fact that you're nefarious. But, sure, I don't think that's going to be a factor if one or two people pick one up. Otherwise, I think the honor system is going to work, is what I'm saying. And I've personally, and this is not a woe me because I'm fine and functioning and everything's good, but over these last 5 or 6 years, I've developed what may be called low vision. And I've talked about this before on the show, so it's just an awareness thing. It's not a poor me thing. And it is age-related macular degeneration, for which I get treatments. And the treatments don't cure it, but there's no cure for it. But if you catch it early and you get these treatments, it kind of abates the digression of your macula. But now I have, if I want to get any more, because there really is no glasses you can get. You use readers, but so do a lot of people as they get older. If I want to go any further on this, I have to go to a low vision clinic. So I don't feel like I have low vision, but I kind of do. Sometimes I can't carry a magnifier around to the store. Well, I could, but I do make sure when I go to the grocery store that I've got my phone so that I can take my camera and enlarge a price or a ingredient or something. Are these the garlic ones or the plain? Because I want the plain, And even with that, a lot of times I have to go to somebody in the store and go, excuse me, can you read the expiry date on this milk? Because I cannot read it. And people are, oh yeah, sure, no problem. They're very nice. But that would be considered a low disability. If I'm doing the self-checkout, which I always do, sometimes I run into a problem. Generally, I'm pretty good. I can see pretty good. But I'll oh, what's this? And I'll have an issue and I have to call somebody. And they're very nice because they're generally supposed to be. They're customer service. That's why they're standing there. So, but if I had a lanyard that kind of said, hey, by the way, I'm taking my time here in the milk section because I can't see the thing, then it would indicate to people, and I'm glad I heard Mississauga Transit is doing it, Waterloo Transit, if they understand that you're taking a little longer to get on the bus or a little longer to do the fare, that it's because you have a hidden disability. And hidden disabilities, not just low vision, but brain injuries, if you're neurodivergent, chronic pain. They mentioned chronic pain. And I'm like, yeah, I guess chronic pain, yes, is a hidden disability. It may not affect the way you walk, the speed that you walk, the gait, but you may be in pain and thus might need a little more time for this, that, or the other. Across the street here where I go all the time, the walk light comes on with the walk sign, and within 2 seconds, it starts counting down. Like it doesn't stay walk for very long. It goes walk, and then the countdown starts. So it's always this thing about, well, technically, you're not supposed to enter the intersection when the countdown is already on. You're not supposed to do it. Apparently, that's the law. Nobody does it, of course. They figure out what's left. Can I make it? And I see people all the time, and I'm like, geez, I'm going to be there one day where the countdown starts, and I look at these people crossing the street slowly, and I'm like, they're not going to make it. They're going to have to count on the kindness of motorists to wait for them to finish crossing the street. That's not necessarily a hidden disability, but you know what I'm saying? Sunflower lanyard. Hey, by the way, letting people know. What a great idea. Love it. This is the Mike Farwell Show. I'm Larry Fedoruk, back with more in a moment. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
That tells us that there's thousands of people living in Waterloo region with what we call an invisible disability. It could be a brain injury, could be chronic pain, could be low vision. Again, they're the experiences that may not be immediately apparent just by looking at someone, but they're also ones that we know have a significant impact on people's daily lives.
That is Waterloo Mayor Dorothy McCabe, my guest moments ago. I'm Larry Fedoruk, and for Mike Farwell today. We all know what Mike is doing in Kelowna. There we go. But Dorothy McCabe with us to talk about the city of Waterloo adopting this hidden disability sunflower campaign. And it was in Australia many, many years ago. It's now a world initiative that slowly people are catching on. If you saw a person wearing a sunflower lanyard, you might not know what it is, but hopefully you do now. At least you do. You can get the word out that it means the person wearing it has a hidden disability. As Mayor McCabe said, could be chronic pain, could be low vision, it could be on the spectrum. You could be and hidden disabilities. And until you get one, which I kind of have now, you're perhaps not as appreciative of the changes in your behavior or the efforts now you have to make in order to function with your hidden disability. And to have that acknowledged, that's if you want to acknowledge it. You can wear this sunflower lanyard or not wear it. Some days, if you're going somewhere, whatever, you can wear this, and people will hopefully be aware of the program and know. Or if you want to talk about it, if you're not ashamed to talk about it, people say, what's the sunflower lanyard? Oh, hidden disabilities. What do you have? Well, I have this. And then you have a conversation, and hopefully people are more understanding of it. So what a great program. Check out the City of Waterloo to get yours. Dunkin' Donuts coming to Canada. How is that going to affect Tim's? What is Tim's doing? We're going to talk to a business and marketing expert next about that very move. This is 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
So to come on today's program, we're going to talk about wait times in ERs, and we know they're not good. And some of the things we should be looking at to lessen those wait times, that's coming up at 11 o'clock this morning. Right now in the program, and I talked about this yesterday, Dunkin' Donuts returning to Canada, left in 2018, back now. Should start to see some locations in the next couple of months, rolling out mostly in Quebec and Ontario in this first year or so, and then throughout Canada, if they make it. And I don't know, we shall see. Interesting, too, that some said Tim Hortons is vulnerable right now. Some of their product choices, loyalty and a younger demographic. And one of the things, one of the slip-ups, if you will, that Tim Hortons was being called out on was their use, some say overuse, of temporary foreign workers. In other words, they're not hiring local people to work at the Tims, not providing the jobs that so many people count on when a Tim's comes into the neighborhood, you know. So Tim Hortons said they are actually committing to hiring 10,000 local employees, and they're going to back off on the foreign workers program, the temporary foreign workers program. Some say that's a reaction to Dunkin' coming in and them trying to change their image or get back to their brand, their Canadian brand. Some say it's a reaction to Dunkin'. Anyway, much to talk about here about this topic. Our guest is a business consultant, also marketing instructor at York University's Schulich School of Business. Also a lot of experience in business and marketing in the private sector. David Polera is joining us. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I love this topic because I was really interested as soon as I heard Dunkin' was coming. First, this reaction of Tim's about the jobs, that they're going to hire more local workers. They say it's just the timing of it. We had always planned to lessen our dependence on temporary foreign workers, but the timing is odd. I think it's kind of a reaction, isn't it?
Well, I think it's important to know that to just kind of give a little bit of history on the temporary foreign working program as a whole. The whole point of the program was that there was no availability of local workers. Like, that's the whole premise of why this program exists, right? Mm-hmm. They want to hire local, but they can't find local workers, so they bring in foreign workers in order to be able to operate their business. Foreign workers, I think that there's probably some public confusion that this is a way for companies to get, cheaper labor. That's actually a myth. Temporary foreign workers are not less expensive than local workers. In fact, in many cases, it's more expensive to hire a temporary foreign worker. So you don't do it for cheap labor. Although I think if you ask the average Canadian, they might think that way, because when we think about things, business concepts like outsourcing, a lot of times that's done to lower costs. Okay, so this is about availability, and I think that if youth employment is skyrocketing, all of a sudden the availability argument goes away. Right? There should be people that you can hire for your local Canadians that you can hire in your restaurants to work these jobs. And so, is the timing suspect? I mean, there's definitely a link between Dunkin' coming in and Tim's not wanting the perception of not supporting local Canadian jobs. But I also think, Tim's has a long history of supporting the local communities. And so it was the temporary foreign worker was a necessary step in the past. I think they should be given credit for realizing that program is no longer the best way to move forward and increasing their commitment to hire local. But we also need to put the numbers in context, Larry. They want to hire 10,000 workers. Well, they have 110,000 workers today. So that's like less than 10%. That's like natural turnover for a QSR. So this isn't as huge of a deal as I think it's being made out to be.
And they did start more or less during COVID when there weren't workers available. That was one of the reasons there weren't workers available. Is that not right? Because of COVID?
Yeah, I don't know exactly all of the details in terms of whether they could or could not hire. What I do know is that, this whole temporary foreign worker program is meant to solve an availability issue, and that issue is no longer exists. There are people who are looking for jobs. There are youth unemployment is like very high. And Tim Hortons, I did some research. Tim Hortons' workforce, 45% of their existing workforce is already aged 15 to 24. So, bringing in more teenagers who are looking for their first jobs, looking for some income to support their education, whatever, that's just a good move from a PR perspective. And it just helps them be able to run their business.
The youth unemployment is a whole other thing right now that I've been looking into lately. And we're going to be talking later on the program to Scott Hamilton about youth unemployment in the area. But, often the person's first job was, classically McDonald's, and still true, but also Tim Hortons. I think a lot of young people were looking at, this is my entry into the workforce, part-time, weekends, and then maybe full-time in the summer.
100%. Everybody's got to start somewhere. And, quick service restaurant jobs are a great way for students to learn responsibility, how to show up at work every day, learn how to do the tasks, customer service focus, and it's got a flexible schedule that allows them to continue with their schooling. So they're great first jobs, and it's great that Tim's and now Dunkin' is going to be able to offer more of them.
So Dunkin' coming in at a time when we're tending to not buy American, we're trying to buy Canadian. Now, how Canadian is Tim Hortons today, et cetera, that's another conversation, and we can have it. But what about the timing of Dunkin' coming in now? What is your thought on that?
I'm on record as saying that the timing is pretty interesting. I'm firmly middle-aged, and never in my life have I seen a greater buy Canadian sentiment as I have in the last 2 years. So having an American company, like literally a company whose slogan is American runs on Dunkin', come into Canada at this time is certainly interesting. But I do think, to your earlier point, which I think is a really important point here, they're coming in via Foodtastic, which is clearly a Canadian company. Right? Foodtastic is a Canadian operator, and they're bringing in this American brand, which does have some awareness and familiarity in Canada based on their previous presence here. So this is a Canadian operator bringing in an American brand and trying to revive it in Canada. Tim Hortons has a very rich Canadian history, but from a business and a legal perspective, I would argue they're no more Canadian than Dunkin' is these days. Tim's has local franchisees, many of whom I'm sure are Canadian operators. Foodtastic is going to have Canadian operators. So I don't think the gap from a real business perspective is nearly as large as Tim's would like it to be. What Tim's has that Dunkin' doesn't, Tim's has definitely a Canadian origin story, a very rich history in Canada, and those are things that they're really going to need to play up as a differentiating factor to combat Dunkin' coming in with a younger SKU and arguably a cooler SKU than Tim's has had in the past few years.
Although Tim's has tried, Justin Bieber, Ryan Reynolds, and we see the Dunkin' Donuts coming out of the States at the Super Bowl, which are Affleck and Damon and stuff. So there is that theory that the loyalty to Tim's is an older demographic and the younger demographic has not that loyalty, despite Bieber and Ryan Reynolds, and they may in fact be ready for Dunkin'.
Yeah, I think Tim's should be given some credit for some of the partnerships that they've executed. I think the Tim Biebs with Justin Bieber was a very interesting collaboration, although I think it's a huge myth they didn't call them Bieber balls. I think that the PWHL and the Barbie collaboration that they did, I think was great. Great way to support girls and women. A great way to really tack on to a conversation that was already happening. But I feel like Tim's has been very hit or miss as it comes to youth specifically. If you go on their app right now and you go into the Tim shop, I'd argue there's nothing in the Tim shop that my 15-year-old daughter or 13-year-old son would want, right? There's a bunch of sweaters, but there's nothing really cool. And I think that there's so much opportunity for Tim's to be able to really listen to what our youth today wants and what they're really interested in and gear their offers toward that. From a product perspective, for sure, having drinks that are more desirable and appropriate for children, youth, but also, through everything that they do, is there something in the restaurants they can do? Why don't they have a high school happy hour where between the hours of 2 and 4, it's a buy one, get one, and encourage high schoolers to bring their friends? Make Tim's a local hangout place for younger people. There's lots of things that they could be doing. And I just feel like the fact that they're not doing these things really lends itself to an opening for Dunkin'.
You mentioned that Dunkin' is being brought in by a Canadian company. I love that point because even during Buy Canadian, I always say, importers are Canadian business people too. And they have a business too that brings in products that we hope people will buy. So we always forget about the people who are kind of facilitating or bringing in products from America. So do we remember...
Sorry, I was just going to say, let's not forget, as much as there is a Buy Canadian sentiment, I don't see the Walmart parking lot empty. I don't see the Starbucks drive-thrus empty. Right. Costco's parking lot is always full. I mean, we still support American brands, right? There is definitely has been a Buy Canadian movement, but let's not pretend that we've just decided to completely abandon American brands, because that's just not true.
You're absolutely right. Do we know why or remember why Dunkin' left in the first place in 2018?
I can't say for certain, but it really is often, if you look online, it's really attributed to the fact that they lost ground to Tim's in the 90s and 2000s. Right. And, franchisees actually won a lawsuit that Dunkin' wasn't spending enough in marketing support to support the brand. And, look, I'm a marketing guy. You can't launch something and then leave it alone and hope for the best, right? You need to invest marketing dollars in order to continually remind consumers why you exist and why they should be supporting you. And if you're not doing that, if you just kind of launch and leave, your business is going to struggle. So, the previous franchise owners made a successful argument that Dunkin' failed to support the brand in Canada. Will they learn from their mistakes? I hope so.
Well, and maybe Target will come back, but I'm digressing. So Tim Hortons really, in my opinion, built their reputation on a fresh cup of coffee, guaranteed kind of thing, and it grew from there. The other players, it's hard to find a second cup. I think Coffee Time is gone. The player we haven't mentioned yet, speaking of supporting American brands, McDonald's upped their coffee game and started to because Tim's was giving McDonald's a run for their money, and McDonald's came right back and upped their coffee game, and they still do it. They'll, buck for a coffee kind of thing. They still do that.
Yeah, definitely you're right. The McCafes, I can't remember when they actually started, but they've done a great job. McDonald's has done a really great job with their, they've always had a strong morning program, but really upping their coffee program over the last several years has been, a huge success for them. So I don't think that it is any longer the case that Tim's is the runaway first and only choice for coffee. There's lots of different places to get coffee these days, including Second Cup, which not coincidentally was purchased by Foodtastic. So Foodtastic is coming in with already some coffee experience in Canada.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're going to have two coffee brands that they're running now. One, I would argue, Second Cup competes more with Starbucks, and Dunkin' is going to compete more directly with both Tim's and McDonald's.
Well, yeah, and my point was who's in this coffee game. So McDonald's, obviously, Tim Hortons, obviously. There's this thing about you're a Tim's person or you're a Starbucks person. Which one are you? So if Second Cup is more Starbucks, then who's after Tim's could very well be Dunkin', who stands a good chance if we weigh it that way. Do you think?
Yeah, I think, Dunkin' and Starbucks both coexist very well in the U.S., which is why I'm led to believe that Dunkin's going to go squarely after the Tim's consumer, because in the U.S., are they going after the Starbucks consumer directly? I don't know for sure, but based on what I've seen, it really is the every person's coffee. America runs on Dunkin', very kind of a blue collar type positioning, which I think is more similar to what we have with Tim's in Canada than we do with Starbucks.
Sure. Well, I love this stuff. David, thank you so much for your thoughts on this and your time today. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Larry. Thanks for chatting.
David Pollara is a business consultant. He's also a marketing instructor at York University's Schulich School of Business, and also has been business marketing for many large private company, knows his stuff. It's a fascinating area of conversation for me always is business and marketing. Love it, love it, love it, especially when it comes every day to things like coffee, everyday items, like you would get at Tim's. Hey, my personal kitchen has free refills, so I'm going to just wander there and get one and be right back with more on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Tim's has definitely a Canadian origin story, a very rich history in Canada, and those are things that they're really going to need to play up as a differentiating factor to combat Dunkin' coming in with a younger SKU and arguably a cooler SKU than Tim's has had in the past few years.
I'm Larry Fedoruk in for Mike Farwell today. That was my guest, David Pollara, moments ago. He is a business consultant, also instructor at York University's Schulich School of Business, business and marketing guy. And just during that interview, he came up with a couple of great ideas, like should have a high school happy hour and 2-for-1 deals for high schoolers. And my Tim's is near a high school, and if I ever make the mistake of going in there in the noon hour, it's like I'm way back of the line because the high schoolers are lining up for Tim's, And I also have a Starbucks kind of equidistant from me, and I guess in that way I'm more of a Tim's guy than a Starbucks guy. Although times when I'm like Starbucks is the only choice, and so I buy a Starbucks coffee. And it's pretty good. Why don't I go to Starbucks more often? I don't know. I just Tim's. But I mean, the loyalty question and the whole idea being based on this Dunkin' Donuts story. Dunkin' Donuts is returning to Canada, and we should see them in a couple of months. I don't know about Red and Kitchener Waterloo, but the first couple locations should be in a couple of months. And it's a Montreal-based company that's a food company that's bringing them back to Canada. And they also own Second Cup, which David pointed out to us, which I did not know. So that's the company bringing them in, and they're in Montreal. So they may start kind of that way, moving them out, like Montreal, Toronto, Kitchener, and they make their way. And they said most of the locations will be Quebec, Ontario in the first year or so. But nevertheless, they're coming back, Dunkin' Donuts to Canada. America runs on Dunkin'. What about Canada? Well, do we have a loyalty, especially during this Buy Canadian time? We talked about Buy Canadian, when was it, yesterday or Monday? Yes and no. I mean, for me, especially when it comes to coffee, I get most of my coffee at home. I make coffee. I enjoy making coffee. I enjoy having a coffee maker, and that's my favorite coffee is the coffee I make. If I'm out, the loyalty is to what's nearby. Is it on the way? Do we have to go out of our way? And if it's a Dunkin', and all things being equal, if the coffee's good, and if I'm having any other product, how is it a food product? But it starts with the coffee. And price points, I guess, would be the other thing. If it's, sort of the wallet rules, I'm loyal to how much money do I have? How much can I afford to spend on this thing? That's my loyalty, right? And so I don't think, as David mentioned, an origin story belongs to Tim's, and the history of it and the way they've marketed themselves as Canadian certainly tugs on those strings a little bit. But for the most part, they're a Brazilian, I think, Brazilian investment firm, isn't it? Like, how Canadian are they now? How Canadian is Dunkin' now? You could argue that Dunkin' will be more Canadian because it's being brought in by a Canadian food company than Tim's is. So it's not even that. I think the dollar and location is going to rule more than patriotism when it comes to a cup of coffee, a cup of Joe. All right. Coming up on the program, we're going to talk about wait times at ER in Ontario. That's next here on 570 News Radio. Still to come on today's program, we're going to talk about youth employment, especially in Cambridge. Cambridge councillor Scott Hamilton is going to join us in about a half an hour, and we'll talk about what they're doing to help young people get jobs this summer. Youth employment, a very interesting topic for me because I was just delving into it recently about the issue of summer jobs, how when we were young, 60% of us had summer jobs. It's under 30% now. Why the change? And there's a number of reasons, and there are the same reasons why a lot of youth in Cambridge are having trouble finding summer jobs. So what they did in Cambridge briefly, and we'll talk more about it with Scott, is not so much try and find more job, is just focus all the resources into one area so that it's easier for a young person to see what the availabilities are. That's one of the things they could do fairly easily and at low cost to improve chances of a young person getting a job this summer. So that's coming up. And then Dan Lebold is going to join us. He is equipment manager and head trainer of the Kitchener Rangers, and also has quite a history in major junior hockey. And I think this is his third tournament run now, Memorial Cup run. Man, this guy is a veteran and beloved by players and coaches alike, and just to kind of help celebrate a Rangers win last night, Dan Lebold is going to join us in our noon hour. Right now in the program, research is calling ER wait times in Ontario hospitals. Well, it's a crisis, but it's a preventable crisis. What do we mean by that? Joining us is senior researcher with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Andrew Longhurst is joining us. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning. Good to be with you, Larry.
Thanks for joining us on this topic, very important topic. We know about the wait times, and we hear about this over and over and over again. My understanding is it's actually getting worse. It's increasing?
Yeah, what we've seen, especially at Cambridge Memorial, is quite an astonishing and worrisome increase in the time it takes to be assessed by a doctor in the emergency department. So what this research did is it looked at changes in wait times over the last 5 years. And what we've seen is an astonishing 226% increase over 5 years in the wait times for the majority of patients. So waiting in 2020, 2.3 hours, which jumped to 7.5 hours. Again, this is capturing what 90% of patients, the maximum they wait, so up to 7.5 hours. So this really demonstrates the impact of the provincial underfunding of hospitals and that relationship to how it creates longer wait times for patients.
So it's waiting just to get processed and in, and then even longer to actually get an assessment from a doctor. Is that correct?
Well, that measure is how long it takes for that initial assessment from a doctor. So you arrive in the emergency room, you let them know that you're there and you're waiting to be assessed. The wait time, though, for those that need to be admitted into an inpatient bed has also increased over that same 5-year period, from 23 hours up to 53 hours, and that's more than a doubling. So the fact that we're seeing these significant wait times for those patients who may have more complex healthcare needs, who need to be admitted for more serious conditions, waiting often in hallways, on stretchers, really signals that the healthcare needs of the population are not being met with the current funding provided by Queen's Park.
I about a year and a half ago had to do an emergency run at a hospital. It was not Cambridge, but the hallways were already split up into sections with decals on the wall with numbers, so they knew where to find me in the hallway. I mean, it was just kind of stunning to me that they almost had to embrace hallway medicine and say, okay, we need a hallway system, which was a workaround that they had. And I was just stunned by that we're not trying to end hallway medicine. We're actually trying to deal with it. It's too bad.
It is stunning, and it's really unfortunate, because I think ultimately these are political choices. We could choose, and the provincial government could choose to end hallway medicine, but it requires adequate year-over-year funding. We have heard from the hospitals themselves that costs are increasing at about 6% per year, but the provincial government has said that they will only fund hospitals up to 4% per year. So there's a significant gap in funding, and what we know is it has consequences. It impacts people's lives. It makes it more difficult to get care, and like you said, it means that people are waiting in these often undignified places in the hospital to get the care that they need. It's not to say that hospital staff aren't, doing the best that they can to provide the best quality of care, but they're working with significant constraints. And I think this is the challenge in the province, is we're seeing that these political choices to underfund the healthcare system, keeping in mind Ontario spends the least per person on its hospitals in the country among the provinces. These are political choices, and they have unfortunate consequences.
There was at Cambridge Memorial, they were talking about occupancy of 104%, and and like, excuse me, that's over 100%. That's overcrowding. That's must be difficult to deal with for staff as much, as great an effort as they're providing. It's 104% occupancy.
It's really quite astonishing that we're seeing these type of occupancy rates across the province. And like you say, the distress it creates for healthcare staff to provide, this disconnect between the care that staff want to provide and no patients need versus the constraints that they're working under, creates this moral distress. And when we look at the research and we interview and we talk to healthcare staff, we know that distress that's created is one of the main drivers of burnout. It's one of the reasons healthcare workers don't stay in the field, is because of those constraints and that distress. And I think if we want to move to a system where we recruit and retain and hold on to the very important healthcare professionals in our hospitals and across the healthcare system, we need to address these capacity challenges. And it really is an unprecedented financial crisis affecting hospitals in the province. And this research found that over the last 3 years, the majority of Ontario hospitals are in deficit. So it's really a significant challenge.
Well, not only the underfunding, but add job cuts to that, and it's all very strange why money isn't being put towards that. At the same time, don't necessarily want to go in this direction, but all funding for other projects that seem kind of ridiculous that are not going to healthcare. What about, and I've heard Cambridge Hospital people talking about this, the system where people wouldn't necessarily have to go to ER. Is that part of the solution? In other words, more family doctors, more clinics, where you don't have to necessarily show up at ER for everything. Now, if you have to show up at ER, of course, they want you to come. But what if you don't?
Yeah, there's no question that strengthening primary care, whether that's a family doctor, nurse practitioner, or a team of providers, where patients have a regular place to access care, that's not the emergency department, is really critical. But we know that for a number of people, and a significant portion that are going to the emergency room, they actually do need to be there. And so I think it's important to keep in mind, while primary care is foundational to improving access to care and helping in some ways relieve strain on hospitals, it's not the silver bullet. And so I think this undercapacity of the hospital system needs to be tackled head on, and that requires funding that meets the cost pressures within hospitals.
So it gets back to the funding. It is all about the funding, I guess, isn't it?
It really is. And this is the challenge. Like you said, we're seeing staff across the province being laid off in hospitals, and, hospital administrators themselves are saying there's really very little left to cut that's not going to directly impact frontline patient care. So we are now in a situation where we are seeing growing wait times, and those emergency room wait times are really a canary in the coal mine. They signal to us that the funding levels are not adequate to meet the needs of the healthcare needs of the population. So it really does come down to those funding commitments from Queen's Park. We know, like I said, Ontario funds its hospitals at the lowest rate in the country. We have the least hospital beds on a per capita basis in the country. It really is widely known that Ontario has an undercapacity system for the size of the population and growing complexity of care needs. So as we see demographic shifts, we see baby boomers aging. This was all predictable, and yet we're not seeing the provincial government really meet the moment and recognize that these investments are critical at this time. And they need to be consistent over time. We need to have a health workforce strategy. These are elements to develop a high-performing public healthcare system that we know is possible, but we're not seeing those funding commitments coming from Queen's Park.
Now, is Queen's Park saying they need more federal health dollars trickling down, or because I know there have been some questions around monies that have come to the Ontario government that haven't been properly, at least audits to saying they've been clumsily handled. Let's put it that way to be nice.
Larry, there is definitely a role for the federal government to step up in terms of funding for provincial health care. We have strayed far from the idea that, the federal government and provinces would split healthcare costs 50-50. We're far away from that, but it's one of the concerns that we've seen in Ontario as well as other provinces is those federal dollars for healthcare, intended for healthcare, don't always go into healthcare. And so, Ontario is an example where some of those dollars in the past have gone they've flown to general revenues, and they aren't allocated directly on healthcare. And that's a concern when the provinces are saying we need more funding, but we're not actually using those federal dollars to put them directly into care. We might be using them for tax cuts or helping to reduce the deficit or what have you. So I think there's a need for greater accountability on the part of the federal government to ensure those dollars are flowing directly into care and where they're going. But I think the provincial government also, has a really important role to step up. Provincial healthcare is a provincial responsibility. So ensuring that those funding allocations are going to where they need to be and also meeting the need, I think is really critical here.
It really is preventable crisis here. Interesting numbers and conversation. Andrew, thank you so much.
And my pleasure. It's been great to talk to you.
You as well. Andrew Longhurst is a senior researcher with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Cambridge Memorial, 104% occupancy. On a good day, it's 99%, and they're trying to get people out of the ER who need to be checked in and get a bed. They're trying to get them checked in. They're trying to get people home who but need to be properly assessed. That takes hours. Understaffing. That goes back to our funding topic, our funding issue. Your thoughts? We'll be back with more in a moment. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
When the provinces are saying we need more funding, but we're not actually using those federal dollars to put them directly into care, we might be using them for tax cuts or helping to reduce the deficit or what have you. So I think there's a need for greater accountability on the part of the federal government to ensure those dollars are flowing directly into care. But I think the provincial government also has a really important role to step up.
Absolutely. Andrew Longhurst there with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. He is a senior researcher there, and they did this study and they looked at Cambridge Memorial. Specifically mentioned in this particular research with 104% occupancy in emergency rooms at times, and it never goes far below that. It's usually just over 100%. And what does that mean? That means, well, I guess hallway medicine, which if the capacity is over 100%, then you have to put people somewhere while they're waiting to be assessed, and the wait times for assessment are over 7 hours, and that's on a good day, basically. And of course, we've heard over the last couple of years of the Ford administration of emergency rooms being closed, which is just, in my mind, unbelievable. Just, you can't have that happen. You can't actually close the grocery store, close the gas station, they're closed, but not the emergency room. That's not something you close because of lack of staff or funding. And the funds that come in from the federal government are significant in these health dollars that come down that are supposed to go towards health in the provincial government. And I don't know that they've mandated, I don't think they have mandated a system where any federal health dollars that come to the province have to go towards healthcare. But it seems like a no-brainer to me. Yes, they should be. That should be it. Should it? Don't you think? I mean, that's absolutely. I mean, taxes and what we pay in a democracy. I've always said this: health and education. Those are the top two. Health and education. Health and education. Everything else, okay, is important. I want nice roads, which is usually municipal, but all these other things that we have our government to do. Health and education. That is the mark of a dare I use the word healthy, but you know what I mean, healthy and progressive country, where we guarantee good education and health care. I just think that's a basic. It's like a basic human right. And if you're going to play around with our tax money and shove it here and shove it there and buy yourself a plane and build an airport that nobody wants and a spa and mow down the green belt and whatever else you want to spend money on, when the healthcare system is suffering, it's like, that's a reverse priorities, is it not? And, Doug Ford has said many times, I'm a businessman. And I agree on the importance of the world. The economy runs on people spending, and having money to spend runs on business, and business has to be encouraged and motivated and all of these kinds of things. So when you have business opportunities and you have to build infrastructure and you need to bring jobs and business to a region, these are complicated things and have to be done. And I guess I want the government to be involved in that somehow, although their main function is to just, have, and not by tax breaks necessarily, but just by various incentives for business to be here. They have to help in that regard. But other than that, it's not much for you to do. Really, where the levels of the basic humanities of health and education. Like, can you think of another one? I mean, yes, you want the lights on You want the highway. You want, health and education. Can you take care of that? Can you take, especially health? Especially health. The province of Ontario, the biggest, greatest province. I've lived here 45 years. Why did I come here? Because it was the greatest place to live in Canada that I wanted to live. And for years up until these maybe last 6 or 8, it's been the greatest place to live. And now not so much. Now not so much. And we've had conservative governments before that tend to favor business and tend to, but if this is where it's going, and if underfunding the healthcare system is the Ford government way to introduce private healthcare, which exists, there is a 2-tier system. It's just not prevalent. So because the rich can always afford things that we cannot, the uber rich, including specialized and private healthcare. But if we're going to privatize more and more of this stuff, that is just a road I don't think we should be going down at all. But it seems like that's what it is. Because if you defund, not fund, unfund, cut jobs in healthcare, and people are waiting 7 hours in an emergency room and longer, then what are you doing? What are you doing? We're going to switch from this to youth unemployment. Scott Hamilton, counselor in Cambridge, is going to join us to talk about what they're doing to help youth unemployment. That's next on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Go Rangers, go. It's going to be a long wait for fans. I'm sure, I think, the Kitchener Rangers themselves appreciate the break. And, the goal was going in, as Cameron Reid said this morning, the goal going in was, trying to win the 3 and get that bye into the final game on Sunday. And I'm sure every team thought that, and the Rangers got it done. So now they have all this time to rest and maybe repair a little bit where needed and to be set for Sunday. So I'm liking the break for the Rangers. Some people, I guess, feel that, if you could play sooner, that would be better. But I don't know. I don't mind this wait. So it's so much to talk about when it comes to the Rangers. Trainer Dan Lebold is going to join us at 12 o'clock today, just after the 12 o'clock news. He is the Rangers head trainer and equipment manager. And this is his 3rd tournament run. And he's got a lot of stories, been around the game a long time. And now with the special team. So he's going to join us. We'll talk more about the Rangers and about Dan's history just in a few minutes' time here, just after 12 o'clock. And then right after that, we'll get right back to our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, whatever else you would like to talk about. This is a subject near and dear to me because I just did a podcast about it recently and have dived into this a little bit, and it's youth employment, youth unemployment also, which is rather high these days. In Cambridge, they're trying to make it easier for young people to find jobs. Just exactly how are they doing that? Well, counselor for the city of Cambridge, Scott Hamilton, is joining us. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Larry. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You know what? It was a late council session last night, but the sun is shining today, so up and at 'em, as they say.
That's right. And the Dutch girl is smiling upon us again. So
there you go.
Here we go. Now, the youth unemployment is rather high these days, isn't it? That's one of the things you wanted to look at in order to do something about it. But talk about the youth unemployment rates.
Yeah, so I sit as a council representative on the Youth Advisory Committee of Cambridge. So I have been lucky enough to hear the job hunting perspectives of Cambridge youth from all across the city, Galt, Preston, Hespeler, and Blair. And kids are feeling pretty down and pretty discouraged. They just can't find work like I think you and I used to be able to find, Larry, in decades past. And so right now, studies are showing that the youth unemployment rate in Canada is unprecedented outside of a recession. So for 15 to 19-year-olds, for example, they're being hit the hardest. It's almost a 20% unemployment rate. That's 19.5%. And in Waterloo region, it's actually about 19% of our youth that are struggling to find employment. So sitting on council, sitting on the Youth Advisory Committee, hearing these perspectives from our residents, it was just clear to me that young people were really struggling to get their first start. And this lack of work was affecting families, and it was also affecting our local businesses as well. And I want a city hall that really removes barriers wherever it can. So back in late 2025, I worked with staff very closely to put together a motion to try and reduce this problem and try and get some positivity and some jobs back there for our population and our youth moving forward.
And I want to talk some specific here in a second, but we're dealing too, correct me if I'm wrong, still with, I'm going to call them pandemic kids who are getting into that 15 and 19 age group, but had a time when they weren't, a year or a little more in school where they didn't have the same the same opportunities.
That's right, and that's why I think it's incumbent on any organization, if it's a business, if it's a city, if it's a nonprofit, if it's a community association, to do whatever they can to ensure that our youth feel supported, feel hopeful, and that they have the resources at hand that they need to overcome those challenges that they experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic. So like you said, people were isolated. There was a lack of, let's say, social interaction, also a lack of challenge when it came to actually being out there in the world, hunting for jobs, working your first job, punching in, punching out of a shift. These are essential moments in a person's life that helps you towards career literacy, right, as decades move by. So there are real barriers facing young people and businesses today. And I can assure you, Larry, that engaging with so many youth across Cambridge, everything from the age of 12 all the way up to the age of 30, people want to work. Our youth want to work. But we're at a time where they might need a little bit of extra help, some extra resources, and some hope. And I know the city of Cambridge and municipal governments everywhere can help with that. And that's exactly what this motion was intended to do.
So what are we doing to enhance the youth job opportunities?
Sure. So the first thing is really to work together with staff to figure out how can we expand with our economic development team the level of collaboration between the city, local businesses, and organizations. So first off, staff met with Employment Ontario, the Workforce Planning Board. They really engaged a lot of groups and partners across the city that otherwise hadn't had an established dialogue. There was a new website that's created, and that's actually online right now. So parents, youth, families, businesses can go on this website. They can access some of those resources that you just highlighted, Larry, that they may not have been privy to having years ago during COVID. That's online and live right now. There are handouts the city's created. They will be distributed across city facilities, at events, at these different organizations going forward. There's actually enhanced staff presence. So the recreation coordinator for the city is becoming more involved in delivering these opportunities for youth across the city, making sure that there's an awareness that there is this platform there that will help our youth and our businesses find employment in a mutually beneficial fashion. HR at the city is also increasing its youth hiring practices, looking at hiring more internally in the city. And what really happened during this motion that I think staff and council were very pleased with was the elimination of repetition and the duplication of services. So frequently out there when it comes to job hunting, you may have different organizations that are all offering the same, you could say the resume class or the CV writing class or the interview class or how to do something on LinkedIn. So what the city ended up doing was creating a sort of hub, increasing the level of collaboration, cooperation, increasing the dialogue between different organizations across the city with our municipal government. So building relationships while eliminating that inefficient overlap, ensuring that no one is replicating these services. So efficiency is boosted. The taxpayers, as a result, have had absolutely no cost with this. There's no cost to this program. So it's really a win-win-win. It's a win for youth and families. It's a win for the city, and it's a win for Cambridge at large because we're going to connect more youth with more businesses. And when you can connect local youth with local businesses to establish a first job that can lead to a career, that's a huge victory.
It can be daunting to try and get that first job, or even if you've had a small part-time job, to kind of up that a little bit for a summertime or what have you. So the fact that you're concentrating it is like, if I'm going to ask, where do I start? Now at least I have a place to start. I have a hub, I have a web page, I have places I can go immediately.
Well, exactly. And sometimes that's all it takes, right? Especially if you're a youth seeking employment and you don't know where to go. All you need is a little bit of direction, a little bit of a gentle advice. Sometimes it takes a little bit of a push from a family member or someone that you trust. And that's exactly what this website, what these cards, what this hub is intended to do. It's to show our residents that we understand there's a challenging situation, there's a problem, and we as a city can work together with partners from all different walks of life across the community to get something done. And first jobs really do matter, Larry. Like you said, they lay the foundation for the future in terms of understanding how to engage colleagues socially, how to work within different hierarchical levels of an organization, how to create strategies, how to follow through on plans, how to deal with workforce conversations. And there's no exaggerating how important it is for youth to be employed when they're younger. But the crucial thing is to get them started and do it in a fashion that's beneficial, not just for the youth and their families, but for local businesses as well, because we also have so many businesses across Cambridge that are fantastic and they are looking for young talent. And so initiatives like this help link those two things together in a way that's truly beneficial for everyone out there in the city without raising taxes whatsoever, which is a big win.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and these are things you just could not learn in a classroom, any even job or business course. You learn them on the job. So important. Here's one of the things I found when I was researching summer jobs for a podcast I was doing. One of the phenomena was that there were more seniors in those jobs in that part of the workforce, mainly because there's more seniors, period. Secondly, was more of them need to supplement a retirement income. And a lot of those jobs that went to students were going to seniors because employers were saying, rightly or wrongly, well, here's a person who knows what it's like to show up for work every day. Here's a kid who needs time off during exams and is its first job. And we're favoring an older workforce. How do you convince the businesses then who may be leaning that way to say, no, you gotta hire youth?
Yeah, I think you're correct, Larry, where at times there can be a bit of almost reverse ageism out there, where as times get tighter and there's an affordability crisis, you do have persons that are older adults remaining in the workforce longer. And as a result, sometimes they take a lot more of those roles that would have typically gone to youth in previous years. So if you're an employer out there and if you're considering hiring a youth, my first piece of advice would be to just try it. I think there's a lot of stereotypes and stigmas out there kind of assuming, well, the COVID generation of youth, they don't want to work or they're lazy or they're addicted to screens. And I couldn't disagree more, right? I would suggest giving it a shot, hiring Cambridge youth. They're smart, they're energetic, they're ambitious. They've got incredible ideas, and we've seen this come through at the city level as well, whether it's youth applying to our entrepreneurship programs, reaching out to HR, also working within the city, doing summer jobs. You know, I take my children to swim class every week, multiple times. They're very active, and you have the lifeguards and the pool staff that are Cambridge youth that are so actively engaged. So I would say give it a shot because Cambridge youth will surprise you. They're ambitious, they're hardworking, they're ready to do a great job. And there's so many out there, Larry, that are ready to start careers as well. So planting those seeds today, if you give a youth a shot, you never know what's going to happen 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line. That could be your next CEO, but you're never going to know unless you give it a try. And so I'd recommend every employer out there to do your due diligence, but to hire Cambridge youth, because I think you're planting the seeds not just for a positive economic experience for a local resident, but for the city as a whole, where our best and our brightest can grow here and thrive here for years to come.
Scott Hamilton, thanks for your work on this and your thoughts. I agree. These are could be great times for youth, and they are great hires often. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Larry. And for anyone out there interested, you can Google City of Cambridge Job Resources for Youth, and that webpage will pop right up for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Larry.
Scott Hamilton is Ward 7 Councillor for the City of Cambridge. More on this topic in a moment. This is 570 News Radio. We're also on Rogers TV.
So there are real barriers facing young people and businesses today. And I can assure you, Larry, that engaging with so many youth across Cambridge, everything from the age of 12 all the way to the age of 30, people want to work. Our youth want to work. But we're at a time where they might need a little bit of extra help, some extra resources, and some hope. And I know the city of Cambridge and municipal governments everywhere can help with that. And that's exactly what this motion was intended to do.
I'm Larry Fedorkin from Mike Farwell, and we just talked to Scott Hamilton, whom you heard there as Ward 7 councillor, City of Cambridge, talking about the initiative that they've done for youth employment this summer in the region in Cambridge. And basically, if you Google City of Cambridge youth employment, it'll take you to their webpage. And part of what they've done is at little actual physical expense, but yet a great service, is they've just consolidated a lot of different opportunities and services into an easy to navigate web page. That's one of the things they've done, but the main one, so that it's easier for a young person to know when to start and then where to go to actually get that summer job. And I think I talked about this last week, so I'm not going to go into great detail again, but I did recently a podcast on summer jobs, and the stat that caught me was 30 years ago, and before that, when we were younger, up to 60% of us had summer jobs. And that is now under 30%, just under 30%. So it's been cut in half. Why aren't young people working summer jobs? And the part-time jobs and the weekend jobs that maybe turn into full-time summer jobs in the meantime. Why is that down? Why is youth unemployment high? And a lot of people, and Scott mentioned it, and I agree with Scott, that it's not that young people don't want to work, that they're into their screens, that they're, sure, those exist. We always had. I had those when I was a kid, guys. I'm not working. But that's generally not true. I think that's a myth. They want to work. They want jobs. And there's a lot of reasons that number has gone down. And some of the minor ones are that a lot of districts, because I'm looking at North American stats, Canada and the U.S., so a bigger picture is that a lot of school districts changed around their school year, so there wasn't a big, long 8-week opportunity for a summer job. Others, there was when this phenomenon started, there was a lot of talk, which is, you don't hear as much lately, but if you want to have a good job, you got to get a university education. Now, these days, especially in a Doug Ford world, they're pushing the trades, doing and these are great jobs, by the way. I'm not knocking the trades. We need them. But they push the trades and they push, student debt, and that's all true. But at the time, people were saying, I got to get a university education. And I got to get into a good school. So instead of summer jobs, kids were taking summer school, taking university courses for credits, trying to prep courses, all that kind of stuff, and didn't necessarily have a summer job. That was another reason. Another reason was that a lot of schools said, you need volunteer hours and they'll count towards school credits. So if you're going to be volunteering, you don't have time to do a summer job. So these are all smaller reasons. The two biggest reasons are, as I talked about with Scott, seniors. More seniors in society. We're growing older. We know that. And more seniors have to work. It's not that they want to work to stay active or to keep. They need to work to supplement the retirement income because stuff's expensive. So they are getting the jobs that often would go to young people. And rightly or wrongly, employers have maybe stereotypes of young people, or they go, I can rely on this guy because he knows what it's like to go to work every day. He's been in the workforce. He's willing to work every day anytime I call him. Whereas the young person has exams or they have this or that. So those seniors get the jobs. So that's a big factor. And the other big factor is a lot of the entry-level jobs that went to young people, now going to seniors, are automated. Just think of how many cashiers have been displaced because of self-serve checkouts. And, this is hardly an official survey, but I'm sure you'll find this in a lot of stores. I use the self-serve at the grocery store now, and it's always packed. We have my store has, what, 8 or 10, I'm trying to remember, 8 or 10 self-checkout little kiosks. And there's always 5 or 6 or 7 going, and nobody in line at the 1 or 2 cashiers that are working still. So even that, and the cashier is one entry-level job, but a lot of these jobs are automated, so an AI, taking over. So where are those jobs going? So this is one of the reasons youth unemployment is high. So I guess overall point being that an initiative in Cambridge to try and help young people get into the workforce is good. I mean, like we said, there are things as a young person, whether your summer job or your part-time job as a young person to you is a fond memory or not. I'm sure we all enjoyed the money, that we made, even though for me, working at a car wash was kind of a grind, And one of the guys I worked with was an ex-con. It's a true story, and still kind of a tough guy. And always, when the boss gave him orders, he would mutter under his breath about how he was going to come back one day and get that guy. And I was like, I'm 16, working at the car wash, and so I learned things, and that's not necessarily the best example of what you learn because you're in the in the job market when you're a kid. But I'm just saying, in overall point, there's just experiences and learning that you get doing a job. So if I think what Scott said is great, take a chance, if I can use that phrase, on a young person if you are looking to hire. Probably won't regret it. And really, summer jobs for young people, you learn what it's like to have a job. You learn what it's like to show up every day. You learn, you probably had some little jobs when you were younger, mowing lawns or whatever, you got an allowance. So you tried to learn money management. But when you're out there on the job for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day and you get paid, you feel a little differently about that money than you ever felt about money before. So you do truly learn money management and all kinds of things. So hire a young person. To help celebrate another Rangers victory and a Memorial Cup game for the whole thing on Sunday, joining us at 12:05 is going to be trainer Dan Lebold, the Kitchener Rangers head trainer and equipment manager, and a person who's got a lot of history in the game. He's coming up next here on 570 News Radio.
Here's special guest host Larry Fedoruk.
And if you're expecting our usual 12 o'clock Talkback Hour to start right here, sharp, just after the 12 o'clock news, not today, because we have an important conversation we want to have. We will get to all of your calls and thoughts and ideas and completely open up the phone lines in just a few minutes here. But we have an opportunity, and we wanted to chat with the head trainer and equipment manager for our Kitchener Rangers. And what a history this gentleman has in hockey and in junior hockey and in the Memorial Cup runs. Here is Dan Lebold. Hey, Dan, good morning or good afternoon.
Well, it's morning here in Kelowna, Larry, so good morning.
And good morning. And I don't know if this is getting up early for you after the big game last night, but anyway, what a game. Congratulations to you and the Rangers. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's been quite a run to get to where we are right now. That's for sure. It's been. I was thinking last night, and we were talking about it's like planes, trains, and automobiles. This playoff run, considering where we've all been since it started, and not including the regular season.
Yeah, for sure. And to that, I was commenting earlier. I'm not an expert, but 4 days off might not be such a bad idea at this point. To get ready for Sunday night. How do you feel about that?
No, I think it's a great idea. I go back to 2003 when we were in Quebec City, and it was the exact same scenario. And the 4 days off will be good. It's the way you've seen the staff have managed the playoff time. It's been great. To get a couple days off now and then go back at it Friday and Saturday and get ready for Sunday. The formulas work so far, so that's what we're hoping for. The the rest of the way. And that's what we did in 03. You know, we got the first 3 wins, put us right into Sunday. It's the most efficient way, and our whole playoffs have been efficient that way when we went 4-5, 5-4 in the playoff run. So, yeah, the players have done it efficiently, and they've deserved a little bit of time off here.
You've had now, what is it now, 3 tournament runs?
Yep. We've had one in Quebec City. We hosted in 08. And then, in Kelowna. So kind of gone east, central, and west to get her done. So I'm hoping that this can be 2 of 3 while we're here.
I'm going to ask the impossible question. How do you feel about this team compared to others that have gone deep?
There's something unique about this team. There's like a steely resolve to get it done. Like, we've been down in games. We've been, down in the score. We've been down in the series, but there's a steely resolve to get it done. And if it's not, the top line, the second line picks it up, or the third line kicks in, or Hershey makes a huge save. He's been phenomenal out here. So there is some similarity between this team and the 03 team that, there's just this will to get it done. And then we have some guys on this team who have, playoff experience in O'Reilly and Woolley that, I've tapped them a few times and said, this is the time when you need to be our leaders in the fact that you've been here. If you've shopped at a grocery store several times, you should know where the meat section is. So, I think that's who those guys are. They've been here, they've done that, and they've quietly and sometimes not so quietly said it in the room what needs to be done to win. So you have all that experience. It's phenomenal. Mike McKenzie's done a phenomenal job pulling this team together and creating this team that we have.
I watched the best YouTube video about you that's still out there if people want to watch it. It's not that long. It's doable in a few minutes to watch a video about Dan Lebold. And as I'm watching it, I realized, man, that video was 5-6 years ago. What was it? It was marking about 1,800 games that you were involved in Major Junior.
Yeah, I think we've climbed a little bit higher than that now, but it's crazy how those games and sneak up. Like, I think we're a little over 2,000 now. But it's hard to imagine. Like, the journey started in '92, and when we moved the operation to Sudbury, and now in 2026 we're in Kelowna, BC. So yeah, it's a lot of miles, a lot of games, a lot of people, a lot of players. Through this playoff run, Joe and staff, the business side had brought a lot of alumni in, and it was very, very special to see them come back. In fact, I said to somebody, once the game starts and after I met the alumni or former players, I could go home. I'm satisfied because to see the past come back and celebrate with us. It's phenomenal. Joe and Adam have done a great job, bringing people back. So yeah, it's been it's almost actually hard to believe that it's that many games. So I guess if it's hard to believe, then it must be some fun along the way. So and to put it into perspective, Joe Birch, our chief operating officer, my second year in Kitchener, he was a 6th-round draft pick. So I saw him come in as a 16-year-old, and now he's my boss. So I hope I treated him well when he was a player.
Well, that video has so many players talking about you, talking so well about you, and all deserve it. And that was my point of watching this video and realizing it was 5-6 years ago, and how much you've added to your experiences and resume since then, including now this run at the Cup. And I particularly like the story of, was it 03, I guess, where you just had to kind of transfer the dressing room to into some 18-wheelers and get them to the Cup, which basically you did.
Yeah, well, I talked to Pete at that point. I said, Pete, what I didn't know what we had for facilities. I know that when you get on the road and stuff like that, dressing rooms aren't always as big as what you have at home. But I said to Pete, can I take whatever? And Pete was, at that point, Pete was probably more concerned about his lineup than what Dan Lebold was going to put in the truck. But I was like, he said, I don't care. Sure, bring whatever. So I think anything that wasn't screwed to the floor was in went out to Quebec City, it was a 20-foot AMJ Campbell truck that went out there, and as that truck was pulling out onto Ottawa Street, I'm thinking, boy, if that truck doesn't make it to Quebec City, it's going to be a 3-team tournament, or they're going to have to call another team, because it had everything that we were on that truck going out there, and like a nervous mother almost. I was like, I could hardly wait to get to Quebec City to make sure the truck got there. And as it was, we flew in, and I went right to the rink, and thinking that the truck would be sitting there waiting for us. Well, it was another 3 hours till it got there, but it finally got there. But yeah, we had virtually everything. In fact, we took 12 stationary bikes out with us, which was a little crazy, but wanted to make it as close to normal for our players as possible. And we were actually playing. Kelowna was out there that year, and they were close to our dressing room, and they came out and they saw the bikes, and they asked Mr. Branch at that point, can we use those bikes? And Dave said, no, I don't think so. They're Kitchener's. And they were like, what? Kitchener brought all those bikes? And since that, now the CHL set up like a situation that, they provide all this stuff, because they don't need teams carrying stuff halfway across the country.
Right.
So.
Right, and that really has changed now, where you can go to a Memorial Cup somewhere, and they have training, and they have skate sharpeners, and whatever you need, they've got it there. You don't have to lug it, right?
No, exactly. Although coming out here, because in the playoffs, we're fortunate enough. Our club, leaves nothing to want. We're fortunate that we can travel ahead and take stuff ahead and get ahead. But obviously, I wasn't going to drive all the way out to Kelowna from Barrie. In fact, when we won in Barrie, a couple of the players said, "Are you leaving now for Kelowna?" And I said, "Well, if it's okay with you, I'd like to go home and reload and then get ready to go out there." But we had to put it all on a plane, and so now you're worried about weight and getting everything in. So again, the night before we left, I know I was pretty nervous. I don't think I slept very much, just making sure that we had everything we needed to be out here. Because when you're out here, you can get stuff here in a hurry, I guess, but you don't want to be for want. Like, you got to have everything you need, because things can go sideways in a hurry. And but no, we're loaded for bear out here. We're ready to go. And again, we've done it efficiently, so we haven't needed all the things that we've needed out here. But I really appreciate that the club has said, do whatever it takes, whatever resources you need, get it done, because this is important, not only for the club, but for the city. I think the one thing that Jared and Sam had said is they can't believe how excited the city gets for this. And when we won, won those games against Barrie, I think the city had to actually repair the auditorium roof, because it went right off its hatches when we won. But so we're doing it for the city and representing our country, or our city, and families as well.
After all that, and after 2 games and 2 statement victories, we were going further. We knew that. But last night, after that final horn and a 3-2 victory over Chicoutimi, what were your thoughts at that moment?
I think my thoughts were, let's clear this bench and get ready to reload for Sunday. I honestly, my thoughts were how efficiently we've done it, and how anything can happen Sunday afternoon, but the fact that you've done it that way, so efficiently, is the best way to do it. So you start prepping for that, and then you obviously you think of past players, the families that have supported you. I've been so fortunate with, like, my wife Marianne supporting me along the way, and that. So you think back to those things, but you have to quickly set your mind that, okay, now we got to prep for Sunday. And but while it's days off for players, there's a lot of things that have to be done in preparation, for Sunday. And not only that, but the way I understand it, that the plane leaves 3 hours post game, so we got to get all the stuff that's when sometimes you realize that you have too much stuff, is when you got to put it all back on the plane and get it back to Kitchener. So the preparations have started for leaving Kelowna as well. Although I'll tell you what, Larry, this city it's beautiful out here. Like, I see why people come out here and then often don't leave to go home. It's gorgeous here, and the people out here have been so good. But it will be good to get back. But to your question, preparation. That's one of my thoughts were, first of all, family that has supported us, and but also getting ready for Sunday. And we're right after this conversation, I'm heading back down to the rink to get prepped for Sunday.
Always stuff to do that's often perhaps unnoticed when you're a trainer and equipment manager, and and you're a veteran on the team,
mm-hmm.
And we appreciate all you've done and all you're doing now. So go Rangers, go! Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, I should just give out a special shout out to. I'm on the radio, but Nick, the athletic therapist, and Nick Tatler and Ben McAvoy, my assistant, like they've been so good and supportive in what they do. But and just to the fans, just keep cheering. We look. I'm hoping that the plane is a little heavier coming home on Sunday with another trophy case. But it's been a great run, and we've been a lot of places in the last 8 weeks. Not home. Home hasn't been one of them, but it'll be good to get back to Kitchener, and we really, 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 really appreciate the support by everybody back there, and all our families and spouses and that. But we are excited about Sunday.
Very cool, as we all are. And thank you for mentioning those important people on the staff as well. I appreciate it. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, Larry. Looking forward to seeing you back in the region of Waterloo on Sunday night.
You bet. Dan Lebold is head trainer and equipment manager of the Kitchener Rangers. This is his third tournament run, and just the stories he has. And I said, if you catch that video, it's really cool because it really demonstrates what his coworkers and former players have said about him. It's about 6 years old, but it's so it still looks pretty current and all that kind of stuff. And all he's done in the last 6 years is add several hundred games and several more admirers and friends that he has as this veteran in training and equipment managing and all that kind of stuff. Such an important role in hockey and for the Kitchener Rangers in this case. Dan Lebold. Thanks, Dan, for making a few minutes for us here back home. We'll begin our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. What do you want to talk about? It's up to you. That's coming up next here on 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room.
All right, we're into it now, the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Always happy to delay it a few moments to talk Kitchener Rangers hockey. At this point, 3-0 and a bye into the finals for the Memorial Cup. Thanks again to Dan Lebold, the equipment manager and trainer for the Kitchener Rangers, for joining us from Kelowna to kind of talk about it. And, lots of things I found interesting that Dan said, but the one is like, how do you feel after that final horn last night and we win and it's 3-0 and we're into the finals? What were you thinking? And he's like, I was thinking, got to prepare for Sunday now, got things to do. And he talks to us this morning, and then he's got to go to the rink because he's got stuff to do. Like, yeah, that's it. You don't rest. And even after the Memorial Cup, is he resting? No, he's got to make sure the plane is loaded so he can get all the stuff back home. Right? And as he said, hopefully that airplane is just a little bit heavier as that cup is on board. So Dan Lebold, way to go, man. And all your staff and everything. Thank you. Thank you for spending a few minutes with us. So now it's up to you. Phone lines are open. I noticed a few people were calling about subject matter that we've been talking about on the show during the show, and we would just run out of time to get a caller in among the guests that we had this morning. So maybe if you want to try again now, we got time. 519-570-2545, 1-800-570-5715, star 570 on your cell. Hey, the Dutch girl smiling upon us again, the classic Schneider's billboard off the 401, up and running, so to speak, this morning. It was damaged during storms in April and May, and I was looking at before and after pictures. And if you don't drive by there every day or only see it occasionally, basically the right side of her face was ripped off. Those panels of the billboard severely damaged, other parts as well. And they've made the repairs, and she even looks more smiley and wholesome now than ever before. And I was thinking, so I'll just save you looking it up, or maybe the story I looked up is not quite accurate if you know better, but why would a German family have an old Dutch girl or a Dutch girl as a logo? Because here's one thing, the Dutch girl logo has been around since about 1936. So it's been around a long time. It is so familiar, you probably don't even see it in a store. You certainly see it on the billboard off the 401 Puslinch, but you maybe don't even notice it in the store when you're looking at a Schneider's product, which is now owned by Maple Leaf Foods. So 1936, apparently it was a nod to the Pennsylvania Dutch origins of many of the cattle farmers and animal farmers around Kitchener back in the day. And as the Pennsylvania Dutch heritage, and they were the ones that raised these animals and then drove them in a truck to Schneider's, to the factory for processing. And so they came up with this little Dutch girl logo. So there you have it. That's a little bit of history. If you did not know that about the Dutch girl logo, that's why they have a Dutch girl. And plus just in that traditional bonnet and everything, it was just the sheer wholesomeness of the look of that young woman, and therefore the wholesomeness and goodness of the Schneider's product still to this day. So, but the billboard's looking good. Glad they did that, because I guess it would have been easy to say, yeah, we don't need a billboard, or certainly not leave it the way it was, because it looked pretty storm haggard, as it, of course it was. But here it is. Okay, let's go to our 12 o'clock talkback hour and some of the people calling. Preston Paul.
Good afternoon, Larry. You got it right this time. That'll work, buddy.
All right.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
All right. I'm doing good after that game last night. That was just unbelievable, just to see them 3-0 and straight to the championship final. Loved it.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. That was pretty neat that you owned up to Mike's when you were talking about my Kelowna, and then he came back with he has the knack or something like that. And you didn't get the reference to that until hours later. It's neat how that kind of
missed the reference.
Yeah. It's funny.
Then when it hit me, I was like, oh my gosh, I never gave Mike the credit for that great comeback. So I wrote him a note thanking him for the snappy retort.
Yeah, I had a good laugh when he had said it, because I'm old, so I got the reference, which I don't get them all the time, but I got that one anyway. So, but just enjoying the day, watching the grass grow. Can't wait for Sunday. I hope the Jays maybe pull one out again this afternoon, win 2 out of 3. That'd be nice.
All right.
So, you have yourself a great day, Larry.
Paul, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Who's in the queue here next? I think it's Kyle. Kyle, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Let's go Rangers, buddy.
Yeah.
Do you know what the outcome was last night after what happened with Christian Humphreys when he got whacked on a few times by another guy's skate on the ankle or something like that? Do you know anything about that?
I know about it, and I only heard about it because I didn't see it, the whole thing. But I heard about it, and I just haven't had time to see what the outcome was, or if there was any after story on that. I don't know right now. Sorry.
It's a shame. It's a shame because, you make it this far, your teams, and it doesn't matter if you're Kitchener, Everett, Chicoutimi, or Kelowna, and you do a bonehead move like that, in my opinion. I think, I get the emotions are there and you want to win and all that stuff. But, especially, everything's televised now and recorded, and everything is just online now, and you kind of, I wouldn't say throw away your career, but when somebody, a scout or somebody looks back on that and they see that, they're going to be shaking their head and thinking, I don't want to I don't want to have this guy on my team because you don't know if he's going to throw the whole team away by making a bonehead move, right? But no, it was a good game.
Kyle, I'm going to interrupt. Can I put you on hold, Kyle? Because I just realized I'm way late for the news, so I'm going to have to take a break right now and come right back.
It's all good. It's all good.
Okay, we'll be back. 570 News Radio. Sorry.
Here's special guest host, Larry Fedoruk.
Not so special now, Mr. Larry. I apologize to Matt Hutchison for limiting his time there because I was late going into news. It's like one of my jobs is keeping an eye on the clock, Larry. I'm like the quarterback. The play clock is running down, and I'm la-di-da-di-da. I'm calling numbers and plays, and I'm like, hey, you gotta snap the ball, move it on, and I'm not doing that, and I apologize. So it's on that particular error, it's my first time this week, so not an excuse, but an excuse. I'm trying to give an excuse. And we also had to interrupt Kyle, who I want to bring back to the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Sorry about that, Kyle. Thanks for holding, man.
No problem. You got to pay your bills, man. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I just wanted to say that I thought that was kind of, I just didn't understand why, to do something like that and really just detriment to your career in terms of that aspect. But I thought the Kitchener Rangers played very good. Couple of nice rebound goals there for the Rangers. And the other interesting fact before I let you go, Larry, is I thought it was pretty interesting that they said this is one of the most fights that's ever happened at the Memorial Cup in terms of the tournament. I think they're at 4 or 5 now. So it's, it's nice to have a little bit of that swagger coming back and, guys are not allowed to drop their gloves. And I felt like we kind of lost that for a few years, but it's just nice to see, and then as long as nobody's getting hurt and all that stuff. But it's nice to see, Larry, but thanks a lot, man. Go Rangers, go. Okay. And I'm gonna take another whim here and go Canadiens de Montreal and go Habs, go, buddy. Thanks a lot, man.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. I found out this week when Kyle started on that's the persona non grata. It's the forbidden team. You don't mention the team that shall not be mentioned on the Mike Farwell show. So Mike's away, and we mentioned the team, and Kyle did anyway. So, hey. Some things, I guess, rules we can break when Mike's away. I guess that is one of them. Here's Jim. Jim, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Well, I've got something to say about last night's game. First of all, it was an amazing game that the Rangers played. They've played amazingly the whole year. I've been at every game at home and at several away games, and boy, I am so proud of those hardworking Rangers. And last night I was so upset. I've only, in my watching the Rangers since 1963 and season sticking since 67, seen one other play that was as dirty as that one last night, and that was when our player was hit into the boards at the end, and he was off for a year before he could come back and play. And I just hope that Christian Humphreys can come back and play again before this series is over, because he should be playing in that final game. I hope he's not hurt too seriously, but the one person who called recently just said he didn't know what happened. Well, what happened was the player from the opposing team came into hit Humphreys in the boards, and they were trying to get at the puck. And what he did is he took his skate, like his own skate, and started hitting Humphreys with his blade on Humphreys' skate, like the side of his skate on his ankle. And that is absolutely illegal. It's considered to be one of the most dirty things you can do in hockey. And that's what happened. And that's why the guy was given game misconduct. He was kicked out of the whole series. He's not allowed to play another game in the series. And so it should be. That's my opinion. And I think most of our Ranger fans would agree.
I would agree. Thank you, Jim. And thank you for that resolution, because I wasn't sure about that precisely. And with everything else going on here, I didn't have time to look it up. So thank you, Jim, for that great piece of information. Here's Frank. Frank, go ahead. You're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Hi, Larry. It's always a pleasure when you take over for a little break. And I know it's Rangers, hysteria these days, and that's great. I'm a big fan too. But I want to talk about the emergency room segment that you had.
Yes.
And it's very serious situation. I remain totally confused because the international organizations, and Mike has had people on about this, it's not a money issue. There's plenty of money in the issue. It's a management issue and how we manage things. And I firmly believe that as well, mostly in any public organization, it problems and so on come down to management. But I want to give you an example of how horrendous it can be, and I'll try to be quick. I have a very dear friend. He lives in Windsor or Chatham, but he is in Windsor Hospital right now. He was flying back from Vancouver, got off the plane Monday morning. The plane had been delayed 18 hours. He was in real distress. He has multiple myeloma, and the particular hospital they took him to is the cancer hospital. He gets a treatment. Took him 24 hours being in the hall on a gurney waiting to get admitted. He had seen one doctor earlier on when he was first arrived at the hospital. After 24 hours yesterday, he finally got a room. His oxygen issues are significant and severe, and he has not seen a doctor since. So that's Monday morning from 10 o'clock to now over 48 hours, and he has not seen a physician that can give him some sort of treatment and further diagnosis for the issues that he's experiencing. And some of it's the complications, of course, to this very serious multiple myeloma. But the reason I'm calling is to say the problem is not just Cambridge, of course. It's right across the province. And somebody who's in dire need has been left for 48 hours. It's more than a crisis or urgent matter. This has to be dealt with, Larry, and I hope that there are people out there listening that say, "Yeah, it's time. Let's get something done." It's crazy.
It is. Thank you, Frank.
Okay, I wanted to share that.
I'm glad you did, and frankly, there's too many stories of the similar situations. It's terrible. They're called emergency rooms. They're not called whenever we can get to you rooms. And the fact that we kind of can't prioritize that and somehow fund that properly and staff it properly is pretty scary. Here's Sean. Sean, go ahead. You're on 570 News Radio.
Hi, good afternoon, Larry. Yeah, I also wanted to talk on the healthcare thing. My mother recently went through emergency, and we were there basically overnight, stuck in emergency. Didn't see a doctor for a very long time. But your previous caller was right. The money is not the problem. I mean, federal support to Ontario. I'm looking at the chart right now. Millions of dollars. In 2017, it was like 14,305 millions of dollars. Now it's like over 22,000 millions of dollars. That's a lot of money. It's going up. In Ontario's population is basically stalled, but the money is increasing. Our area, so I don't know what's going on with the money because we are getting lots of money. Like your man said, it's a management issue, and the staff. I was watching. They were running around. They were run off their feet. They are working so hard. I couldn't believe it. So are the hospitals just not hiring enough doctors? Are they mismanaging it? It's not the staff. They are working really, really hard, and they just don't have time. So I don't know what's going on. There's something wrong.
Definitely is, Sean. Thanks for the call, man. I mean, in my opinion, I'm not sure what they mean by management. I should have asked specifically because I think if you want to say it's management of the money, and that falls back onto the Doug Ford government. So, and you can look up those numbers, Sean, and I've looked them up too, and I agree with you. The money's coming in, and there's money there, and the billions of dollars that came in pandemic relief that was never properly, the Auditor General report said it's not, I can't really say for sure where is that money and where did it go, but it wasn't properly, you couldn't just look up the books and went, oh, okay, you know, $1 million went there and $1 billion went there. It just was, that was mismanaged, and that's on the government. So if the money's coming in, why isn't it funneling directly? Why is it going into general revenues instead of going to healthcare? As I said earlier, healthcare and education. These are the two. That's the least I expect of you. All the other ministries and everything, I agree, they're important and part of running a province or a country. You need the government and you need these ministries, these departments. But health and education, can you get that done, please? That's the basics, and then we can move on from there. And they're not. In healthcare in Ontario, it's not. And it's, I think funding and money that we're getting is going into general revenue, and it's not going specifically because the hospital, why aren't they hiring? Because they don't have the money, and they don't have the funding to just hire a bunch of people. And as our guest earlier made the point of, if you are working in healthcare and you're working ridiculous long shifts and multiple shifts in a week, after a while you're burnt out and you're like, I'm going to go find a job in another area, because another industry, because I can't do this the rest of my life. It's killing me. So more staff is a funding issue. Funding issue is the government, and if the government has money and they're not funneling it into hospitals and ER and doctors and nurses, huge problem. And we do have a huge problem, and what the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives called a preventable crisis. This is 570 News Radio. We're also on Rogers TV. I'm Larry Fedoruk, in for Mike Farwell. More in a moment. Beginning of this hour, we were talking to Dan Lebold. He's the head trainer and equipment manager of the Kitchener Rangers. And one of the things I did not know was that after the Memorial Cup final on Sunday night, within 3 hours, they're on a plane flying back. So talk about a whirlwind, huh? And I'm, you know, I don't want to predict prediction stuff, and I don't know how sports people feel in general about jinxing it. You know what I mean? That whole thing. Don't say anything. Don't, because you'll jinx. So, and I kind of get that. I've got a little bit of the superstitious in me as well about things. But if it all goes well, the whirlwind, there'll be plenty of time to celebrate on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and for the whole summer. You know, when you're the champion, you got the whole summer to be the champion, and actually and the following season, frankly, you know, please welcome your Memorial Cup champions. It'll be that. So if all goes well, that will be the case. But yeah, Dan Lebold said, you know, because I asked him about how you feel after a game, and after last night's game, his first thought was, got to prepare for Sunday. Now, what do I need to do? He's like into that. And then after the Memorial Cup, he's got to make sure the plane is loaded and everything gets to the airport and the plane is loaded, so that all the stuff is with the players coming home. Only 3 hours after the end of the game, they'll be flying home. Wow, cool, good times though. I mean, you know. Whatever happens, what a run and what a season, and what an honor this team is to the community. So way to go, guys. Mark, go ahead. Mark, you're on the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour.
Afternoon, Larry. Maybe you can help me out on this one. I've been watching all the Ranger games, and on their sweater, they've got 3 letters followed by the number 63. Can you tell me what the 3 letters represent?
The quick answer, no. Jeez, I don't. What are the 3? I'm sorry, I don't know that.
Okay, I thought you might know. Maybe a caller could call in, and I'll be listening.
All right, Mark, thanks. When it gets deep into, I mean, you know, love the Rangers, love the sport, love the thing. It's just when you get into some of the details, I'm not a fan who knows this stuff just off the top of my head. What are the 3 letters? It's funny you would ask me and not the Google machinery, because that's what I'm going to do. What are we saying? What are the 3 letters? And what did he say? The number 63? Yeah. Does anybody know that? I didn't notice that. I should have noticed that. On the Rangers jerseys. Can you hear me typing? Isn't that terrible? I don't think I've ever Googled live on air before, but EBG. Come on, help me out here. Tell me. Well, it's not telling me, so maybe somebody can tell me. It's not telling me specifically what that is or that I can see quickly. Should I give it another shot or should I just let it go? What do you think about this? What do you think about live radio Googling? It's Eugene B. George, founder of the Kitchener Rangers. There we go. The number 63, the year the franchise was established. I guess should have been the obvious, huh? Does that help, Mark? Have you got it? Okay. Sorry, I'm a slow Googler, you know, eyesight, all that kind of stuff. Hey, Joe, go ahead and get me out of this Googling here on 570 News Radio.
Yeah, it's Eugene George. 1963 is when he got the team and sold it to the city for $1.
Okay. That's just sort of what I gleaned. I should have just waited for you to call, and it would have been much simpler and better radio. Okay, thank you, Joe.
You're more than welcome. Have a great day and like your show.
Thank you, sir. Eugene B. George, EGB, 63 the year. Okay. And a nice little nod there, where it's not a particular, you know, rounded up milestone anniversary or anything, 1963. And we've had certain accomplishments since then, which would have been good to have in a jersey as well, but they chose that. I think that's pretty cool. I didn't know about selling the franchise to the city for $1. That's very interesting. But it is still one of the few franchises that's where that's the ownership. You know, a lot of the franchises in Major Junior, which has exploded in, I would say, the last, what would you say, 15 years? Well, it was always good hockey, and it always got attendance in the cities, and I would even say the Memorial Cup even got some national attention at times. But just that brand of hockey, I think, really just grew and exploded. Maybe the World Juniors kind of helped it because you saw these players and you became interested in the teams they played for, and that just grew the franchise in general. I remember so this is going back a lot of years, but when my son played hockey, and I was a hockey dad, so this is going back well over 30 years, so never mind. But anyway, and my son played on some pretty good teams, and by pretty good teams, I mean also not only were they like AA and AAA and really good, and they won championships and tournaments, but by good, I mean all the parents got along, and nobody on the team, parent-wise, was crazy. Everybody was pretty level-headed and supporting kids, and maybe it's easier when you're winning. I don't know, but we were all kind of a good group, and when we went road trips to tournaments and stuff, we all got along and hung out, and it was pretty cool. And one year, our goaltender's dad was a goaltender in the Memorial Cup. And I can't tell you the team he played for. I have no idea, no memory of it, or even what year he was. But, you know, do the math. It would have been probably 20 years even before that. But he was the celebrity of the parents because of, and that's going back a ways. And it's like when everybody said, oh, yeah, Patrick said he was a Memorial Cup goalie. He played in the Memorial Cup. I don't think they won, actually, but I think he played. And everybody was like, wow. Hey, you were in the Memorial Cup. What was that like? It was a status. And that status has even grown. And I know a lot of these players are going to be drafted and playing and moving on with their careers, but a lot are not. A lot of major junior players, this is the pinnacle of their career, and what a pinnacle it is to say you're on the 2026 Rangers team that went to the Memorial Cup. Either way, if you move on from there career-wise or you don't, it's still pretty cool. So lots to talk about over these next few days. I will be back for Mike Farwell tomorrow, Friday, and it looks now like Monday. I might be back Monday because Mike's going to be sleeping it off, so to speak, after that late game Sunday and then flying back. So thank you for hanging in today. We will talk soon.